Okay. Let me say that. All right. Okay. All
Okay.
right.
All
Okay.
right.
All right. Okay.
Oh, okay. We're live.
Okay. We'll try this. Get this done. All right. Okay. I'm good. I'm alive now. I'm awake. This is weird doing this at night still. It still kind of is.
Yeah, you think so?
No, it's all. I like it. It's fine. It's just so used to do it. It's weird during the daytime. Usually I can see out the window and I can daydream and not pay
Yeah.
attention to you. Any case, so what's going on?
Oh, not
Want
much. There's a
to
few.
be?
Oh, so Hal is on here from Littleton. He says another midweek one. James said, "Hey, y'all." James is, I'm pretty sure, from Britain, so it's pretty late over there. Cisco is on here,
Mm.
so hi to him. Hi, Estella. So yeah, we've been kind of crazy busy like the last few weeks. Oh, good evening, Jeffrey. Hope you're both doing well. Yeah, hope you are too. Um, but yeah, we've just been crazy busy with stuff. Like
Oh,
we've had stuff going on.
oh yeah. I'm doing fine. Thanks.
How are you?
Ever. God's sakes. No, yes, it's been very busy. It's been a busy couple weeks and had a lot of fun stuff we've been doing. It's more stuff still coming out, so it's still a little fun to do. But um, I don't want to say a little break from this recording. We're not recording until next week when we're doing St. Albans raid. We're coming off of
Yeah.
The Halloween thing we did with Jen Price. That was, I think, our last episode, I believe.
Yes, the Halloween episode was our last one. Oh, and Frank's on here and 167th anniversary of Wahatchee today. So we're getting into the Chattanooga campaign season now.
David Ireland, the pride of the 137 New York.
Yep. Wasn't that the one where Paps Green got like shot in the face and Ireland had to take over?
So yeah, you don't see people getting shot in the face and having to step out of work. Anyway, that's an excuse. You could use that for you next time you call out sick. I can't come in today. I was
I
shot in
got
the
shot in
face,
the face.
and Dave Ireland has to take over for me today. You should try that.
That
You should
okay,
try
so
that.
let's see here. Who got shot in the face in the Civil War and lived to tell the tale? Patrick Cleburne at the Battle of Richmond in I think
Yep.
it was 1862 ended up losing his two bottom teeth because of it and supposedly spoke with a lisp for the rest of his life. Paps Green at the
And he
Battle of
and he
Wa
got extra money for the Tooth Fairy.
Oh, did you imagine? What was Hiram Granberry dressing up as the Tooth Fairy?
I don't look. I don't know what the hell crazy stuff. I don't know. I'm not.
You're the one with the clown mask behind you.
Yeah, there he is. There he is. It's Rosie. You know.
Oh yeah, and James mentions like a couple days ago was the anniversary of the death of Oliver Otis Howard
Yeah.
as
I
well.
know. I know. I got took all the morning crepes down off the window and last this morning, so
Jeez.
it's very sad around here nowadays.
I saw someone said on our Facebook post and you responded very diplomatically and I had to put my phone away because I was going to be not so nice. That this is overrated general.
Yeah, yeah. My first response was before I hit enter, like when I get work meetings, emails that piss me off. My first one was, but I'm like, can't do it, can't do it.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, look, people can think what they want, and that's all well and good. But my without being too swarmy, my first response was, have you ever, do you even Western theater, dude? Because I'm gonna guess he probably
That
doesn't, right?
that was going to be my response is like, how can you say he's like overrated when he goes to the Western Theater and he keeps getting better? But the ones that don't like him say, well, Sherman just liked him because he was a West Point guy and he just lucked out. And it's like that's not how you get into studying Howard. And yeah, he's not Grant, he's not Thomas, he's not like a lot of the other guys, but he holds his own. He's a very good commander. He's a different commander than a lot of them. And he had to like earn the respect of his men because of his beliefs. Like he wasn't like Sherman was kind of, I have a biography I got about him through interlibrary loan called The Good Man. And Sherman was a little bit weirded out by how religious Howard was, but he saw him as being a very good commander. And
Mm-hmm.
you use that quote from him. So that's like when I saw that comment, I just rolled my eyes because it's like, oh, here we go. We got the Gettysburg movie crowd coming in here. You
Oh
know,
yeah, well, that's always a lot of fun. That no, but that's fine. But people can think what they want to think. But I think it's just one of those things. You just gotta kind of study the big picture. And look, no one knows Howard like you do, so you can't expect too much. But sometimes, but at the end of the day, you try to be fair. That's a very touching day for in your life. It was the first thing you said.
I'm not like mourning, like
You had Enya songs playing all day in the house, and you were walking around mopey. And yeah, it was a sad day around here, but it's okay. he had a good run. He had a
He
good
had a
run.
good, he was like 78, 79 years old when he passed away. Hal mentions that Wahatchee always reminds me of how much Rosecrans, Baldy Smith, and Thomas had done before Grant relieved Rosecrans.
Yeah, well, that's the great dilemma there with Rosecrans. I mean, if he, you know, we've said before. I don't know when the hell we were talking to somebody about this recently, but what would happen if Rosecrans had won Chickamauga? How history might
Mhm.
have been substantially different, right? And you know, he was someone who certainly was losing the fastball mentally. There's no question
Yeah.
about that. But like we were saying, I don't know who the hell would. It was a dream. I know Tyler Stones was somebody. This one of these days recently, we were hanging out with
Yeah.
somebody about if he wins Chickamauga, Chickamauga doesn't happen for a Confederate win,
Yeah.
and they hold Chattanooga and they drive Bragg back like the plan probably should have been.
Mhm.
Rosecrans probably doesn't get fired. Grant doesn't come to Chattanooga. He probably goes to Trans Mississippi. That changes all of history right there because Sherman would go with Grant. He would not go to Georgia. There'd be no march to the sea. Who knows what would happen? And that's all because of that's how Battle of Chickamauga, how important that is. And that's why
Mhm.
when you can look at these things, you can play these games. And, you know, some people don't like to talk about things like that. But I mean, there is a domino effect, right?
Yeah, exactly. There is a domino effect to all of this. Like we've talked before about, you know, Carney, had he not been killed and all that. And I just want to say really quickly, we'll get back to this topic in a second, but Hal mentioned that, so your podcast was mentioned at last week's VBFW and AM Legion meeting. Didn't realize some of my comrades were fans also.
Oh, really?
And you were mentioned in the same breath as Gary Gallagher.
Oh, wow.
Oh, well, thank you for that.
You tell Gary Gallagher that he's at our level now.
God,
Congratulations,
no,
Gary
it's not.
Gallagher. Not,
No,
come
no,
on.
we are not I know you're just kidding. No way. Gary
Anyway,
Gallagher's like, ooh.
no, but it was funny because we were at the reenactment of Cedar Creek a couple weeks ago. Speaking of people, and we were out there and we were supposed to originally be kind of spies, and they made us get on the battle line. So I'm
Mhm.
firing away at Confederates, and it was a great time. Well, we ended up as towards the end of the battle, and I ran out of ammunition because I was like Rambo out there. I do all my ammo in like 30 seconds, you know. And finally, this Confederate guy, one of the Confederates, he recognized me from the podcast and said, "Hey, I'll be your captive. Get me out of here." So we hung out behind the heater house and we shot the shit for a little while, and
Be your captive, get me out of here.
he got out of the battle. We got to hang out and talk podcast art for a little while. So that was pretty funny. So that's pretty cool. That's
No,
pretty
that was pretty cool that happened. It was so funny the pictures you got with him too,
cool.
as your captive.
It was a lot of fun because it was good people, and that was a great reenactment too. And anybody who here was on there knows about that. And they also know how hot that Saturday was that afternoon.
Oh,
It was
it was,
that was truly a daring and dangerous situation.
yep.
Sitting out there in that field while you were sitting there under that tent doing nothing, eating bonbons, drinking a Yingling.
Hey, I totally saw how hot you guys were and never once mentioned the heat at Cedar Creek because guess what? I was sitting in a tent all afternoon in under my little fly talking with my friend Connie while you guys ran around on the battlefield. And it's not that I didn't, I mean, I've never fired a musket before, so I really couldn't. And the role I was playing was chief of staff, so I had to stay behind because I was in charge of the camp
And
at
guarding
that
the
point.
Yingling.
Yeah, guarding the Yingling.
Uh-huh.
And then this is a question for everybody. Has anyone ever watched any of Gallagher's videos on leadership at UVA's MBA program? I never have.
I have on YouTube.
Oh, really? Are they good?
Yeah. He's a great speaker. He's a great historian. He's one of the, you know, with Pete gone, he's one of the, you know,
Yeah.
he stands even. I don't want to say stand alone because I still think I know this is apocryphal to some people. I still think Galen Gelzo is still the top shelf Civil War historian of the planet. But Gallagher's up there certainly as well. And there's a lot of other good ones, and so that's why you got to appreciate what you got, right? Because it's could be gone tomorrow.
Yeah. Adam Kinnaman is on here. He said he was at Cedar Creek. Adam, where were you? Were you on Union, Confederate side?
Uh,
Maybe that's
well,
the guy you ran in. No, that wouldn't have been, that wasn't the guy's name that you ran
no,
into.
his name was Zach, and ironically, he was from Pennsylvania, and he was a dirty rib, and he was
Interesting.
And you know what's so funny? A lot of the people I know who are like really pro-Confederate. I don't mean like the lost causey history people. I just mean like the people who like really get into the Confederate Civil War reenactment thing. A lot of them from the North tend to be from the North. You know,
Yep.
it's just kind of funny how that is.
Good
But
evening, MJ.
I think that's not. I don't think it's a coincidence either. You
No, I
know,
mean, there's a lot of Canadians that reenact Civil War and they reenact as in this as Confederates, which is interesting. I found that out when we were at Bentonville. Most of the Canadian license plates were in the Confederate parking area.
you know what's funny was speaking of Cedar Creek, Mary. I had my cell phone on me, and it was a period cell phone. It was an Apple iPhone 1, so it was period to the time. And I was kept my meter on the counts the steps
Yeah.
between the morning of doing that scouting thing we did and the actual battle and the retreat back to Heater House and the walk back. It was 7 miles in that friggin' heat, where all that gear,
Yeah.
the gunpowder and saltpeter all over your face and tasting that. Made me a soldier, man. Telling you, I could tick on the roll now. So, but it was a hot day. It was a lot, but it was you don't realize how that stuff gets you after a while.
Yeah. Well, and you
I
realize
wish I
why
could be
they
like
tell the
if I could be like you, sitting in that tent doing nothing all day, bitching about the heat,
I was
and
doing
sat there and did
stuff.
nothing all day. You know, when we were out there taking care of the Union, but that's okay. Someone's gonna stay back and hang out.
I wrote 3 reports that day. I was just quickly looking at some stuff about Waxahachie. Totally forgot it was one of the few night battles of the Civil War. Was it the one where they rode up in silence?
The Waxahachie's one of the night ones. Is obviously parts of Second Manassas are night ones.
No, but
Obviously,
where they rode up in silence, you said it was
I
like
was
one of the
right.
greatest like night or like
No, that
covert
you're
missions.
thinking of deep cut, Second Manassas.
No, the one of the Chattanooga campaign
Then
battles, you
yeah,
said
it would have been Waxahachie, but the one they had, they said it was the greatest night. That I remember the quotes about that.
no, let me finish. You said it was one of the most covert operations of the Civil War. Was that
No,
Waxahachie you said that
no,
about?
that was Duck Creek. That was when they had to sail.
Oh, okay.
When they had to sail, they were on a boat. But same thing though. Same
Yeah.
church, different pew. You know. Um,
Yeah, it talks about the Cracker Line, and all that. I'm just seeing it was Hooker that was involved in that one, right?
that was mostly Rosecrans' plan, but that's the one that Grant kind of took over. You know.
Yeah, so it was Hooker's command chief of staff was Dan Butterfield. So Howard was involved and he had Steinwehr and Schurz with him. These are all Gettysburg guys.
Mm-hmm.
Krzyzewski's there. Tyndall, Orland Smith, Adolphus Bushbeck is there, and then John Geary is there too. So not a lot. It's not like a huge battle, but it's an interesting one to study. Um, what are you doing?
Nothing. Just wait for you to finish.
Okay, that's what I was just saying because I was trying to. I had a thought I wanted to get out of there.
No, but there's not a lot of fighting at night, but there's just enough of them, and a lot of these campaigns are dictated because the night thing. The East Cemetery Hill ones is a big one because the way the artillery was laid out, they had to fight at night. So there are things like that that are a little bit different every single time, you know.
Mm-hmm. Jeffrey said those Canadian Confederates must be Leafs fans. They love a loser.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk a lot about the Canadians here pretty soon. We talk
Mhm.
about St. Albans, and that's another thought. The more you study about a lot of the Civil War stuff involving Canada, it's truly a miracle there wasn't a war with Canada. There really is. I mean, when you talk about, we did a lot of Lincoln assassination stuff over the weekend. We talked a lot about that, but when you talk about some of the things that went on, not just in Montreal and Halifax, but they were, all the stuff that went down. And when everything went down on St. Albans raid, and Bennett and Young and those guys are all going to get caught, and the Canadians refused to extradite them. Mm-hmm. And this is, Seward, who hated everybody, right? He's going to go to war with England, going to go to war with everybody. It's amazing how the adults in the room eventually settled things down with that, because there were so many flashpoints, there's so many powder kegs that were on with that. And you're not just talking about the Trent affair and the Chesapeake affair, but all this stuff. But St. Albans is a big one. and it gets
Yeah.
overshadowed because it's the same day as Cedar Creek historically. So no
Oh,
one
is it
really,
really?
same exact day. So no one really cares specifically about that battle because it seemed like it was just a skirmish type thing.
Yeah.
But it's funny because no, it's typical Vermont. Bennett Young, it's we'll talk more about it in a
Mhm.
couple of weeks, but it's funny because he goes up there and he gets released from, I think it was Elmira. It was one of the, or maybe it was Camp Douglas. He was caught. It was one of the northern prisons. He ends up getting out, and he ends up finding his way up to St. Albans, Vermont. So if you
Mhm.
know the area, it's probably 20 miles north of Montpelier. It's just maybe 15 miles from the Canadian border. So it's close to
Yeah,
St.
it's not far at
Workshop,
all.
getting up there, right? And he pretends he's a Bible student, and all he does is walk around reading his Bible, just like you, right? And then one day he comes walking out of his house dressed in a full Confederate uniform, stands in the middle of the town square, puts his gun in the air and goes, I claim the town of St. Albans for the Confederacy. Everyone stops and looks at him, and what do? They just start laughing. Ha, 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 ha. And then he starts shooting everybody, and everything's got out of control, and it turns into a real raid. But it's a fascinating story and how that didn't end up. Wars have been started for less, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, when we were at the Mud House, excellent tour, by the way, there. I highly recommend going to visit there.
Oh yeah.
Um, the woman said that Canada was an ally of the Confederacy, and while like on paper we weren't, in practice we were. Like we were more, I think, allied with the Confederacy than we were, like politically, than we were um with the North, even though more
Of course, for
more
sure.
Canadians fought for the North when they did fight. But when you look at the stuff that happens there, including the Chesapeake affair, involves some Canadians, and like Lincoln was done like in 1864. He was like, all right, you guys want to come into this country, you have to use passports, like really tough to get into the country because of what Canadians were doing, especially in Quebec. Quebec was like, in Montreal, especially, was like, that was like Confederate government North, because that's where Jeff Davis's brother was up there, right?
Oh, there's a ton of them. I mean, there are so many Canadians up there who were so pro Confederate. And it isn't just because of the politics or whatever. I mean, a lot of it just has to be because they're being. They didn't like the idea of someone going. They liked the idea of the monarchy being saved in a
Yeah.
lot of them, and they liked that idea, the concept of the crown. And yeah, if American democracy fails, there's a civil war because it was the German war that was going to be coming. You had
Yep.
all these things coming, and so you had all this situation. Crimea had just happened, so there was a lot of these things were kind of going. And what a great way to sit there and say the king will take care of you, than watching a
Yep.
democracy that's in the fishbowl of the world get into a civil war,
Yep.
especially over something like slavery too. I mean, it could have been
Yep.
anything, but especially that it was just.
Yep.
But that's the way it is sometimes.
Yep. And it's like, I just find it interesting ever since we did our Canadian episode about how many other episodes we could do. Like now we're doing St. Albans, we've already done the Trent affair, and we're probably going to do an episode eventually on the Chesapeake affair, which is even, that's the one that was just off Cape Cod, right?
Yep.
Um, but that's one to have a look at as well, I think. Um, but yeah, there's like a lot that I admittedly, even as a Canadian, I have not studied the St. Albans raid all that much at all.
We were just up there. We didn't, but we were in Montpelier that day.
Yep.
We never made it to St. Al. We were like 20 minutes away. For some reason, we would come
Were we
back.
really? I thought you said we were further away than
No,
that.
we weren't that far away. We could have got up there. We would come back from Burlington. That was a long ride. That was, I had to do. We would just visit Howard's grave and all the stuff we did, and you were pretty emotional, so we wanted to get home. No, that was nice though, but it's fun up there because you can see a lot of that stuff, and Vermont's a different planet. I mean, people talk about, because you think about Vermont, right? You went to October, right, of
Yeah.
that year of '64. What a great time to be a Vermonter, if you really
Mhm.
think about it, because you have everything they did at Cedar Creek, and Vermont was big at Cedar Creek, and then obviously taking care of what happened at St. Albans.
Isn't that Vermont marker one of your favorites at Cedar Creek?
Well, that's a good one, yeah. But there's some good, good Vermont, and obviously Charles Gould down at Pamplin. Can't
Yeah.
forget about that. Vermont gets the crappy end of the stick when you talk about northern states. Standard, he did a good job. There's a lot of stuff he did here at Gettysburg, but they were everywhere. All the Mass states were, even Connecticut, all things. I don't know how they
Did you
got
say
that.
all the Mass states, or do you mean all the New England states?
All the New England states. There's only one state in New England where it counts into it, but the other ones are the best they can. No question.
Do you count Connecticut in that?
Until you get to New Haven, then it's basically northeast New York. You get past New Haven and whatever. Who cares?
Someone said, Inspired John said, "Hi guys, you made my Tuesday."
Oh, it's happy end.
Okay. Inspired John also says, "Didn't Canada have to cover its defense 100% a few years after the war?" I might be wrong, but I thought the Civil War had some bearing on that.
Not well, sort of, because there's a lot of stuff that was going on with that. England got fined $20 million by the United States after the war. I didn't say fined. They wanted reparations because the stuff going on with Birmingham, going on with the shipbuilders, the blockade runners, and they originally wanted Canada. They wanted it to be there, to be part of the U.S. and England didn't want to give it up. Instead, they settled on $20 million in 1865 money, which is a lot. So they didn't have a lot of beer money kicking around. And truthfully, I mean, no one thought. I mean, the bigger fear was in Canada was that the Southerners had won the war, that Lincoln and Seward was going to invade Canada, try to recoup land that they lost in the South, and instead of going north, have the United States go further north. Which I don't know if the United States was in a position to fight another war, but there was a fear about it.
I know, like, Seward was obsessed with getting Canada, like even when he was campaigning in like 1860 and stuff, like it was in his head to get Canada as a country. And there was one point where I can't remember if he was campaigning for Lincoln or whatever was going on after Lincoln had won the nomination, but he was like in Minnesota or something, and he was like, "Oh yeah," kind of made some remark about Canada becoming a state or something like that when he was there, because I guess there was some Canadians at his speech. And then he brought it up with Lincoln, and Lincoln was like, "I don't feel like fighting two wars, because that's what's going to happen if we invade Canada, is we're going to be fighting two wars." So
what they could have done is they could have financed those Fenians that they were always afraid of, right? Because they were always going to attack. Remember, that was always the big fear, was the Fenians are coming.
Yeah, that's what Hal just brought up, like the Fenian invasion there was the idea that the Fenians were going to attack.
And even when old Billy Sherman made his way to Canada, made his way up to your hometown in Goderich.
Yeah.
When they saw the boats coming in, there was fear that the Fenians were attacking. And it was only Sherman. Can you imagine being afraid of an attack and going, "Oh, it's only Sherman, thank God."
You see Sherman show up.
That's how much they were afraid of the Fenians,
You see Sherman show up, and he gives the speech in my hometown, and then apparently it was like just party after that.
Yeah, well, they did that. Civil War people tend to party and tend to drink into that for firsthand.
Well, Sherman enjoyed a good party, I think.
Yeah, no, he definitely had a good time. He played that "Marching Through Georgia" every time he showed up. That was his entrance song.
He hated that.
Yeah, I'm pretty get sick of that after a while.
Well, apparently he did. He would just they would start playing it, and he would be like, "I'm leaving, goodbye." Like he didn't want to hear it.
He went total diva.
Yeah. Kind of like me.
No, I wouldn't say that. You got a guilty conscience if you said that, I think,
Yeah.
Oh, but that's there's a lot of cool stuff. We're kind of coming into that battle season now again, because you're coming into Chickamauga, Chattanooga, all that stuff that's going to be coming the next few weeks, and it slows down again. But October was busy. There's a lot of stuff, and we did the Halloween episode a couple weeks ago. We probably should have done it this week, but Jen wasn't available. At least I don't think she was. We should have done St. Albans 2 weeks ago and more timely, but we're getting it done for the most part.
No, we enjoyed the Halloween episode. It was like great storytelling as always. Especially, you two always have really great stories that you tell. Frank said Sherman had the world record for largest barbecue in Georgia.
In Georgia, probably not the war though. Go to Sheridan in the Valley.
Right, that's the bigger barbecue. But yeah, like you said, we were at the Cedar Creek reenactment, which was a good time. The camp was more compressed this year, which was nice. So everything was within walking distance. Like last year, if we wanted to go to the Settlers, we had to get on this like tractor thing and go over there. and all that, but we met a few people over there, so that was really, really cool. And then this past weekend, we did our booth escape tour with some of our friends.
Yeah, that was a thing. That's a lot of fun doing. Anybody who hasn't done the booth escape tour, and our friend Dave is going to be who moved to Texas, but now I guess he's coming back next month to run the
Yeah,
tour again. And he's somebody who was
in
Dave
March.
Taylor in March. It's March,
Mhm.
okay. And he's the king of this. But we had scheduled this about I don't know, a month or two ago. Some people
Yeah,
we we're down to Virginia Friday night, and then we Saturday morning early, and we did the whole started at Ford's Theater, went over to Anacostia Bridge, all the way down Good Hope Road, all the way down to Surratt's, and did the whole thing right to
yeah,
Garrett's farm. And if you haven't done that yet, and you know how to do it where you're going, definitely do it because it's really cool because
yeah,
a lot of the sites are fascinating, especially that mud house, that Samuel Mud
yeah,
House. So we went there. It was definitely one of the best tours that I've ever been on for a house like that because there was probably, I don't know, what, six of us or so. And then in the tour guide, first of all, it's the Mudd family still kind of quasi runs it. So there's
yeah.
always someone there. So if you ever go to the Mudd house, don't start running your mouth that Mudd was guilty, should have been hanged, because they're not
No.
going to let you stay there if you do, because they take it very personally there. But they'll show you around the house, and some of the stories. I mean, we were there for a good hour going through that.
Hmm.
And the woman, who was an older woman who was a tour guide, and she was great. And it's a fascinating story here in that whole thing. And he's buried right around the corner. And Edmund Spangler, who, if you know this, if you know the conspiracy trial, he was arrested. He went to Dry Tortugas in Florida with him.
Yeah.
They became friendly down in jail, and so he ended up coming to work for Mudd. And he died not long after they got back. And then he's buried right around the corner
Yeah.
in, with them as well. So you can go down there and you can visit it when Spangler's grave as well. But there's a lot of Mudd family down there. Like you go to the cemetery, there's graves, Mudd this, Mudd that.
Yeah.
And the we were there, and there was I forget, it was his great grandson or somebody.
Yeah, or something like that. Then the one girl there, she was like related to the Mudds by marriage.
But the guy we met was a Mudd.
Yep.
His name was Mudd. See what I
Yep.
said there?
That was
You know, but that's a great thing. And then you go to Sakaya Swamp, and you go to the Pine Thicket, and you go to Rich Hill, and you go to Huckleberry, and you go to all these cool places. But it's a good, like, I don't know, 6 7 hour tour. We started about 9.
yeah.
We got done right around 6. We got a beer break in the middle, right? So we were probably out there for about 7 8 hours. We got there just as it was getting dark. We left Garrett Farm right, it was getting dark. So we did
We
that
were.
just right.
So I just put in the chat or the comments that people can see it, a link to the Lincoln assassination tours that our friend Dave Taylor he's going to do the first one on March 14th, 2026. Now it is $145, but that includes admission to 3 museums. So I'm assuming Surratt's Place, Mudd's, and another one, and 2 private properties, so places we could not have got. And it also includes a catered box lunch. So that's not that bad. And you go from 7:30 in the morning until 6 o'clock.
Yeah, I think that he must go into Samuel Cox's Rich Hill because that'll be done by then.
Hmm.
And they probably go to Liz Quisenberry's house, the one by the point, the water we went to.
Yeah.
Or they go they go to Dr. Stewart's house, Rich Stewart's house. So yeah, he's got some of these private connections that obviously we didn't have. So and ours was kind of on the fly. We scheduled it, but you can still get to most places even without going in. But you got to go to Surratt's Tavern,
Yeah.
and it's like $5 to get in, but they waive the fee because of the COVID. I mean, the
Yeah.
government shutdown thing. And then Mudd's is like $10. That's it. But it's money well spent. So theoretically, if you're gonna do that, you're gonna spend like $15 for the entire thing.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Now, I mean, if you're going on Taylor's tour, obviously it's like led by him and it's like more involved and all that. But there's like an FAQ on there if you want to check that out. And there's a few different tour dates on there. Um, and yeah, like James said, great price. Yeah, I think 145 was kind of like, oh, that's a lot. But then when you think about you get admission to the 3 museums, you're going on to private properties that you wouldn't be able to get on otherwise. And you get lunch included with that too. And
I imagine they put you on a big bus, right? I mean, I don't
Yeah, it's
know.
on a bus. I think it's on a bus.
So you're on a shaggin' wagon cruising through Maryland into Virginia. So you probably have you so you don't have to worry about gas or parking. Yeah, it has because there's no way you can go to Garrett's farm with
Yeah,
everybody's
like
cars. There's no way you could.
it says, all tours will commence and end at the Branch Avenue Metro Station, in Silver Spring, Maryland, where you can park there for free. There's several large parking lots around that, and they've got the parking all laid up. The bus itself meets at the Kiss and Ride section adjacent to the station, and there's no free parking in the Kiss and Ride section, so do not recommend parking there. So yes, you're on a bus, you don't have to worry about driving or any of that. Like, so I think that's a pretty good deal for
Hmm.
for
No,
that.
it's definitely a good deal. But even if you don't go on his tour, I mean, if you're going to do it yourself, you can go online. You can map out yourself. It gets tricky at certain points if you've done
Yeah.
it, been down there enough times, you know exactly where to go. And the places for the most part are pristine because it's almost. I mean, Rich Hill, the house of Samuel Cox is different, but it's the same location. But Surratt's is about the same. Mud House is almost exactly the same. It's even the Mud House was fascinating about the Mud House was almost all the furniture is still original.
Yeah.
Usually you have just period pieces and they let you kind of I don't want to say touch everything, but they kind of let you. Like I was fascinated when the woman brought out the book signed by Mud and she had no
Yes.
gloves on. She's like, here it is,
No,
check
I
this
was
out.
like,
Yeah.
but I mean, I will say as a person who um worked in that field for a while in museum conservation, that the thinking on gloves has changed quite a bit. So as long as your hands are clean, you can handle objects like that. But you have to have clean hands, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can drop stuff if you're wearing the gloves too. Like, so, I mean, but I was at first I was like, and then I remembered, just kind of the studies that have come out recently about that. Um,
They used to I could have sworn I could be wrong, but I thought they used to have his boot that they cut off.
I think it was always at Ford's.
Yeah, but I could have sworn, yeah, maybe so. But they still have part of the splint that he made for him that you can see, and they still have the couch that he was on, and they still got the bed he slept on. And all the furniture is there, is the same, and shaving kit, all that stuff is all still there. That's a quite a place, and
Yeah.
um, and it's just yeah, it's one of those places you go and it's just really really neat.
Yeah. And so Jeffrey asked, did I see Mary's old bedroom is now bathrooms? I think he means at the Surratt Tavern.
It's
Yes.
actually yeah. So it's funny because Mary Surratt's bedroom in both the Surratt Tavern and the Surratt Boarding House are both bathrooms now. And I wonder if that's a coincidence. So if you go to the Walk and Roll restaurant on H Street in Washington, the nest that hatched the egg right over there in downtown DC down in Chinatown, the men's room is her bedroom. It's kind of a creepy
Yeah.
thing. But in Surratt's Tavern, it's the same thing. It's like the men and the women's room in the same. They've closed made it one big bathroom. So I don't know. That's the way it is. The I will say that I took advantage of both places. In the one in the Washington is more creepy. You definitely even if you know about it.
Yeah. I mean, the whole like area, I mean, the room where Booth was at Mud's place was creepy. Like we took our picture in the mirror that Booth looked into. Jim Miller mentions there's an FBI file on the boot. Why would there be an FBI file on a boot?
I don't know.
And I don't mean a Canadian saying about.
I was gonna say about what? What are you talking
Yeah.
about? No, but they might have moved it because I could have sworn that when I went to Muds that time they had the boot there. They might maybe they moved it. Maybe I'm just friggin' dreaming, but I could have sworn that's where it was. But yeah, I know it's over at I know it's at Ford's now. I
Yeah.
know it is, but I thought that's where it was. Um, and it's a nice but that mud place is really really cool because you can walk the grounds, the paths that they took Davy and Booth went down. They're still there. You can still walk the paths to the Zakaya Swamp, and I mean, you could probably do it on a horse if you really wanted to. Probably like a fool going up 301, but I suppose you
Could you
could do it.
imagine?
I don't know. Well, that'd be kind of cool to do,
The-
Um, but no, but that's a cool area though, and that what surprised me about the Mud House, like we said a few minutes ago, is how original virtually everything is. Because the
Yeah,
family literally owned it. What they say until like the 1970s or
something
something.
like that. Yeah.
And then they had like a one of the relatives basically said we're going to sell it, but we're going to make it to the historical society, and everything has to stay the same. Like you're
Yeah.
literally looking in the same mirror that Booth did, when he woke up in the morning on April 15th.
Yeah.
It just a lot of these things have been replaced. The time they're lost, but the bed, the dresser, everything is the picture on the wall. It's like literally going back in time, and it's not fake like a lot of these other places.
No.
Like it's the same wallpaper,
Yeah.
same floors. So of all the places we've been to, that's the one that I can say you actually really feel like you're part of history.
Yeah.
It's
No,
just crazy. It just is. I mean, I've been a million places like this. The only other place I can think of that has the same feel is Lizzie Borden's house up in Mass and Fall River because it has a lot of the
yeah.
same original stuff too. But for the most part, it's most of these places, these museums, these houses are filled with what they call period furniture,
Yeah.
period stuff because the originals are gone.
Yeah. It's and like I worked in a house similar to Mud's. Well, not like it was laid out very similarly. It was a governor's house for the governor was also called the jailer in Huron County and very similarly laid out. And we had like a couple original pieces from the first jailer there, but but very similar furniture and all that. But it's amazing that they had all the original pieces and that people in the family kept putting them in their wills so they would get back to the house as well.
I'm not surprised. Not surprised.
Oh, so Richard said the boot had a file because in the 50s the FBI investigated if Booth had survived.
Oh,
That whole thing.
all the finest base stuff. Well, I
Remember
mean
when
that.
you got called out on Facebook a few weeks ago by that guy who was trying to spin that tail again?
Oh yeah, yeah,
He's like,
yeah.
"Look, I've found like unknown like just discovered photos of John Wilkes Booth and he survived." And we're like, "Buddy, this is not John Wilkes
No, no,
Booth."
that was. I don't know if that guy was playing or what, but the story is, he gave. So when he got to on April 25th, he got to Garrett's farm. He gave him the name John Boyd as a fake name,
Yeah.
and Dave Harold ended up going up to Bowling Green up with Willie Jett. He gets brought back, and everything goes bad with Doherty, the 16th of York, the Lincoln Avengers, everything. The history. He gets shot, the
Yeah.
whole deal. But the story is that there was a guy who looked like him named John Boyd. And so it
Hmm.
wasn't John Wilkes Booth. And then he snuck away and got away. And the body that they shot, the useless thing,
Yeah.
was actually him. And then he ended up escaping to Texas through Oklahoma, a place called Enid, Oklahoma, and he lived the rest of his life. And then, ironically, he's going to commit suicide, and his body is going to get stuffed by a taxidermist, and it's going
Yeah.
to tour the country. Come see John Wilkes Booth's body,
So
and it's
strange.
all in a book by a guy named Finus Bates, who's the grandfather of Kathy Bates, the actress, the one who was in that movie with what the hell is it?
Scott James Caan.
Yeah, when was she? The guy
Misery.
that Misery, right? And it's funny. There's a couple of books. There's another book by a guy named Otto Eisenschimmel,
Hmm.
who kind of spins the assassination. It was a conspiracy by the Catholic government, perpetuated by Edwin Stanton. There's all kinds of conspiracies with this, but I'm pretty sure, and I'm pretty sure that he was shot at Garrett's farm. He was
Yeah.
killed. He was buried at the Grand Hall. Eventually, he was moved over to Baltimore, and that's where he is today.
Yeah.
But there are some people who think that because every guy who has a picture with a mustache who looks like Booth that was taken after April 26th of 1865 could be Booth.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but I think it's such a leap of faith. And there is some truth to the fact that the family wouldn't allow the Booth grave to be dug in Baltimore for DNA testing and stuff. But I get some of that. They also don't want it to be a sideshow at a circus either.
No, could you imagine how many people would come out for that? For like, oh, we're gonna dig up Booth. Like,
Well, just in case, on the 1% chance that he did get away,
could you
or
imagine?
or they buried the wrong body. You never
Yeah.
know. Who the hell knows?
Yeah.
They buried what it cost them $34 to bury him. And
Wow.
somewhere in my computer, I have a copy of her receipt to bury him. But it's just one of those things. It's a fun. There's so many books about the conspiracy. Manhunt's a great book about the chase. But I mean, if you want to read the finest Bates book, I think it's called the Life and Suicide of John Wilkes Booth. I think it's called
Yeah.
it's something like that. We have it here somewhere. It's an interesting read, but you really have to really stretch. But again, it's one of those things you read long enough, they'll see you sit there and go, makes you think just a little bit.
But yeah, it's meant to make you think. Like,
But I remember, yeah, there was definitely investigations about that, and the real investigation came when they wanted to dig the body up, and
yeah,
and they said no. They said we're
no.
not going to do that. Part of it's the fact he's buried under two children on top of him,
Oh, yeah.
so they'd have to go ahead and move them, and that's a big pain in the bus.
Yeah. Frank said, "You mean Stanton was not the super detective I thought he was?" We talked about that with the docent at the Mud House. She was not a fan of the
And I'll
Apple
give her
series.
credit because she bashed James Swanson, which
Yeah.
usually they don't. And what was her quote? You remember?
He said he got his money.
He got his money. That's the. But I mean, it's funny because if you read two like books that didn't translate all of the movies, are probably different in different ways. That Manhunt, the book is fantastic, but the miniseries was trash. It just was,
Yeah.
right?
It's like the opposite for Killing Lincoln.
And that's right, and that's
The
the other
Killing
one.
Lincoln book was terrible,
But
but
the Tom Hanks
documentary.
documentary was fantastic. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's but it's interesting though. But what's good about it, you can study the assassination, you can study Booth and Harold and Atzerodt and all of them. Doesn't mean you're some kind of crazy Booth lover and you're all
No.
pro assassin, but it's a fascinating part of history because it's such a unique thing of how the country coming right at the end of the Civil War now suddenly has to deal with all that.
Mm-hmm.
And how the fact that you can probably realistically, because of a broken leg, he didn't get away. Because
Yeah.
we were saying the other day, if he doesn't get slowed down in Mud's house and he keeps going, he probably stays ahead of the cloud there. He probably keeps going and going and going. He probably does
Yep.
get away. But those 12 hours there he spent at the Mud house before he finally got the hell out of there. Then he got stuck in the Zakaya swamp at Pickett's.
Ugh.
The Pine thing about 4 days.
No, thank you. That
Yeah.
sounds terrible.
No, no fun at all. Getting newspapers and whiskey and food from Thomas Jones.
Yep.
And it's funny because all the sketchy people you run into along the way on this
Yep.
thing too, not just Samuel Cox and Elizabeth Eisenberry, but also guys like
Yep.
Oswald Swan and Jones and Harbin and Joseph Baden and Willie Jett and
Yep.
Bainbridge and Mortimer Ruggles and all the people that Booth came involved in that thing. Every one of them got arrested, and almost all of them, the people who were really should have been really gotten in trouble for that, they all got off. I mean, how
Yeah.
Samuel Cox didn't get really put away,
Yeah.
and that's where the Freemason story comes from Booth.
Mm-hmm.
Because Samuel Cox, he was a militia captain, and he was basically retired. He was older at the beginning of the Civil War, and there's no documentation that Booth was a Mason anywhere, right? Even in the Masonic stuff. But somehow Cox, the story is that he recognized Booth as a Mason. He must have done something, and he let him come inside the house for a while until he sent him over to the pine thicket. So who knows? But that's what's cool about these stories is that there's so much gray area you
Mm-hmm.
never know, and you can
Yeah.
go down rabbit holes and try to look at this stuff. But yeah, it's a fun thing to study. Whether you're pro Lincoln, whatever, anti, if you love Lincoln, it doesn't matter. It's still part of history that you got to study it. But it's a fascinating study. It just
Yeah.
is.
And it's part of the history of the Civil War as well.
It's the original OJ chase, Mary. If he was on a white horse, the guy, he might have got away. All the helicopters following him as he's going down to the Zakaya swamp. Imagine.
Jeez, could you imagine? Jeffrey says, talk about Achilles' heel. History is so fascinating, hard to believe Hollywood feels the need to embellish any of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean that's the thing is you know what's so fascinating is people, it's Good Friday, he's going to get shot in Lincoln, that is. How many times Booth made that jump in his career? How many times because he was a very physical actor, how many times in the one time he escapes, he jumps and breaks his leg.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, he got his spur caught on on the
The
bunting.
flag. Yeah.
Some yeah, some people think it was a picture of George Washington. It wasn't. It was the flag. But it's interesting because it's just kind of one of those things. There's so many cool aspects to this. Um, that it just played into the one time it just didn't work out for
Yeah.
him. Because I mean, think about it. He got the hell away scot free. He talked his way over the Navy Yard Bridge, got all the way where he needed to be, and
Mhm.
then he has to stop. But it's good. It's good for American history that they caught him, because if he got
Yeah.
away, that would have been something.
Yeah. Yeah. John Gentili said, one time I walked outside and I broke my foot. It happens.
I thought he said it was at Fight Club.
Fight Club.
John Gentili.
He's probably still scarred from that biker bar we went to.
Oh, my God, you should have seen that. That was a good time. That was
It
fun.
was a lot of
That was
fun.
fun. A little culture shock for old Johnny Boy there, but that was pretty good.
And the
See,
chickens at the 1781, his new friends.
oh God, it was like going with David Rose somewhere. You know, it was pretty.
There's chickens. Yeah, we went to 1781 Brewing, which is in Virginia. Excellent place to go. That's the site of where Stonewall Jackson got his arm amputated. And we also went to see where the arm was buried as well at is it Elwood?
Elwood, yeah.
Yeah.
Elwood's a cool place. Because you can go there and you can visit a lot of things there. But yeah, that's where his arm was, say, allegedly buried. Some people doubt
Yeah.
that his arm is actually buried. I personally think it is buried there, but who the hell knows? But yeah, it's one of those cool places. But no, but continuing on the booth thing, like I said before, if you haven't done that, and you can do it on your own. You just got to research and find the places. But
Yeah.
it's certainly worthwhile. But it is going to take you all day, like all
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
And fortunately, the people we were with were on time,
Yes.
which
Thankfully.
is my greatest fear.
Yep. We kept saying we have to meet here at this time, and we did. Because we had two vehicles. It was great. Worked out perfectly.
John put that jet fuel in his car, made us go extra fast and take those corners on two legs. So it was pretty cool. It was pretty fun. It was pretty fun.
No, it was a great day.
I was
It was an awesome day.
No, definitely was.
What was I going to say? Yeah, and we talked about Cedar Creek, our experience there reenacting. We don't have anything. We're going into the quiet reenacting season now, so we don't really have anything until Remembrance Weekend, which is the next big weekend here in Gettysburg. And then after that, it gets kind of quiet and stuff for reenacting because, quite frankly, I don't want to sleep outside in the cold.
No. I mean, Cedar Creek is kind of the grand finale. We're going to be doing the thing in Gettysburg in December for that Christmas thing. That'll be kind of neat. But again, it's one of those things. I'm glad that that's kind of like the grand finale for that. And it's funny because remember last year how cold it was, and this year how warm it was. It's just you can't freaking win.
No.
And
Carl,
luckily you were sitting there in that tent to stay cool. Thank God. I was worried.
are you worried about me?
I was.
Jeez. Brooklyn said, come up to New York City and visit President Grant. Actually, we have visited the tomb before. It would be 2 years ago, Thanksgiving weekend, that we visited the Grant's tomb.
Mm-hmm.
We had a great experience there.
That was a good time. Remember that the guy recognized, I think it was you, the podcast, and he brought us down to the secret area down there.
Yeah.
Remember?
No, that was fun.
That's a fun area. That Grant Tomb is fantastic. That's such a beautiful building. And it's we went there. It was like some kind of like a bus tour was there before us. There was a lot of people there, but then they left and it was just us. We kind of had our own place. But that's a great area. There's a lot of good Civil War in New York City. You just got to know where to look.
Yeah.
Look for it.
Well, there's this amazing Sherman statue.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of that stuff, and there's some great places down there. But a lot of the big cities that you wouldn't think of, like New York or in Boston, especially, there's a lot of Civil War there. You just got to know where to find it.
Mm-hmm.
It gets overshadowed by the Rev War in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Boston and New York, especially.
Yeah.
But if you go there and look for it, you could find it. You could find the stuff.
James said Christmas in Gettysburg sounds like a movie. Oh, it is.
Is that finally getting released? That I see somebody post that?
Yes, it's finally getting released on streaming, the modern day one, and then they're filming the one that is set in 1863, or they were filming it. They're going to be filming again in January, I think.
I'll be interested to see how many people are doing this with the camera. You know, the one they had the extras for this
I
past time.
know, yeah.
Um, but it was fun when they had the movie here. That was pretty cool. Um, but it was like it was cool because they kind of blocked an entire square and they filmed it.
Yeah.
People here were all excited and stuff like that. But it was neat to, I guess, see a little bit of. I mean, it wasn't exactly the Star Wars or anything being filmed here, but
No.
there was a few people there to check it out. And the town had some fun with it. And you had a good time with it too.
Yeah. We're not speaking of the AC unit.
Yeah, it's a little bit overplayed, I think.
God, that was
Yeah.
done like 48 hours after it happened.
People are still talking about that.
I keep seeing it. I'm like, just enough. Let it go.
Yeah.
But the amount of people that weren't aware of CGI, I was like, what? Like,
No, but it's yeah, I guess you can make a spaceship fly in space and blow up planets, but they can't take an air conditioner unit out of a window.
yeah, I was like, all right. Jim Miller says, come down to Nashville and visit Richard Ewell and Bushrod Johnson.
We almost came to Nashville a few weeks ago, Jim, for the
Yeah.
football down there. We were going to come down for that, but we ended up doing something different. But yeah, we'll get down there soon. I've been to Nashville. I've been there once. It's a fun city. But what I got to do is we want to get down there and go to Franklin,
Yep.
go see all this stuff. There's not a lot of Battle of Nashville stuff in Italy, but Franklin will be cool. We haven't been in Franklin yet.
Yeah. Well, one other thing we do have to, I don't want to say promote, but I guess like say that we are involved in another event on, is it November 22nd at the Masonic Lodge?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, what do you sign us up for now? Oh yeah, so the Good Samaritan Lodge number 336 is doing a Civil War dinner.
Hmm.
So I am going to portray John Ransom, who is a
Yeah.
Andersonville Freemason survivor, and you're going to do Fanny Granberry, and then two other
Yeah.
people are going to be doing it, and it's raise charity for the town homeless food bank. So if you're in
No,
the area,
Seminary Ridge.
so that's right, seminaries, but you not all they split it because
Yeah.
you can't you have to have something go towards one of the Masonic charities. You have to split
Okay.
it. So it's basically both of them. But the seminary museum, which I'm not gonna lie, Mary, that was my idea.
I know.
Because they were gonna go somewhere else. And I said no.
Yeah. Good call.
Yep. And so they're gonna do that so come out and see it. I think it's like $75 a person. And you get dinner and it's period dinner. It's like you can get a northern plate or a southern plate. And they do a good job with the food. They cook it from a Civil War cookbook. Then you have the presentations. So if you're in the area, if you're in the neighborhood, come on down. It's the 22nd of November, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's a weekend after Remembrance Weekend and the weekend before Thanksgiving, so that weekend in between.
Is it a Friday or a Saturday?
I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
It's
Where the 22nd is, but
yeah.
but you can get that information. Check it out. Check it out. Why not?
Yep. And it's I think $50 a person, but that gets you dinner and
That's right. I think
to see the
it's 75.
talks.
It's 50.
Yeah. Yeah, it's $50. And it's a turkey dinner. So it's,
And you can see
Thanksgiving.
the brand new floor we put in there.
Yeah.
And by we, I mean the Royal Weeks. I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
I'm not a very blue collar guy.
But yeah, I will be portraying Fanny Granberry, who was, as Darren said, the wife of Hiram Granberry, Confederate general who was in the Western Theater, killed at the Battle of Franklin. But I wanted to portray her because she doesn't have a voice in history. I've done Elizabeth Thorne before, and I didn't want to do her again as much as I loved portraying her. I wanted to portray somebody that doesn't really have the voice. And Fanny's story is not really well known, and there's different versions of it. So I just have to kind of pick through and write a version of it that I will present to everyone that's there. But her story, ever since I found out about it, she's always fascinated me in the fact that she is, for a long time, was in an unmarked grave, and money was raised for her to finally have a headstone. But she's not buried with Hiram. He's buried in Texas, and she's not. And the fact that they're separated is like, I don't know, I find it kind of sad because the two of them were very, very close. And both of them died very young. I think he died less than a year after she did when he was killed at Franklin.
It's funny. We've been doing this for a couple of years. One person no one's ever portrayed is Clara Barton. And we have a friend who portrays Clara Barton, but I'm surprised no one else has ever done that because people they have speakers who do first person presentations like as if you're them. And she'd be a fascinating one too. because I mean, she grew up in the same state that I did. She was in Central Mass though, and out by Worcester, and a little crazy, Mary. This is definitely a dark side of Barton that people don't really
Oh,
study.
really?
Well, I mean, she had a real bad situation growing up. She fought depression.
Yeah,
Um, she must have had PTSD as the war because she lived to be about 80s. Like she lived, I think she
yeah,
died the same day Fenway Park opened. I think
yeah.
April 1912, right?
Hmm.
Same for the Titanic sank. She went through a weird phase towards the end of her life when she thought she was young again. She dyed her hair jet black and she was stuffing her bra with tissues to. Oh, she went through a weird phase at the end.
Whoa. Our
You
friend
know,
Carolyn portrays her.
I don't know if she stuffs her shirt.
I don't think Carolyn does.
You could ask her that.
No,
You
it's
know,
like, Carolyn, can
but
you
she,
please talk about the dark
but
side of
so it's funny
Claro?
when you study these people, and she's buried on in Western in Central Mass now. And she's got a great gravestone with the red cross on it. But when you study these people as people, you realize just some of the issues that these people had.
Mm.
Um, and the war obviously affected so much of it, just the psychology of everybody. Civil War changed everything. It really, really did. It changed women's roles. It changed
Yeah.
the concept of death. I mean, everything changed. The railroad system, a lot of the industrial stuff. It just obviously ended slavery.
Hmm.
So when people talk about the important aspects of American history, Civil War is number one.
Yeah.
I don't care what he says. That's got to be number one because everything's different. Everything's different, you know.
When you were doing the research for our Higham Granbury episode, like you didn't come across much primary source material for Fanny, right? Like there's little to
I wasn't really looking for it, to be
no.
honest. No, I mean she was a forewarner, and she came out to nearby. I know. U.S. Grant got her a apartment in Boston,
Yeah.
down by not from where Green Dragon is right now in that area. And then she got sick, and she went down to Baltimore, and then she ended up going.
Yeah.
So there's stuff out there again, but um, there's barely enough primary stuff for Granbury, let alone Fanny
Yeah.
Granbury.
No, I'm gonna see what I can find because I know her the basics of her story, but and I know there's different versions of it as well. Um, but I was just reading that they're like he was 7 years older than her. He was 27 when they were married and she was 20. I don't even think there's a picture of her
Um,
that I've never come across a picture of
no,
her.
no, probably not. Probably not. But that's even these people. It's great, good for you that you're telling her story, because these are stories that people don't ever tell.
Well, there's so much, you know, I don't know. Like there's so much else about other women that other women have voices, and I just feel like Fanny's is such an interesting story that, she was pretty sickly. She would have had polycystic ovarian syndrome if it was diagnosed today. And for her to just be like, yeah, I'll come in the battle with you. Sure, I'll follow you to the war. You know, really, I don't know, just admire her for that. And, they were obviously trying to have kids and they couldn't. And it turned out she had ovarian cancer, but she was, with him as long as she could. And she was the one that told him like she was dying of cancer. And she said, you need to go back and fight because this is something you believe in. And I think the other reason he had to go back and fight, and I don't have written proof of this, but it's something I suspect, is because that was their only source of income.
Yeah.
Because when she died, they didn't even have enough money to bury her. So
Hmm.
like it's sad. He had to leave. He didn't want to, but she told him, you have to go. You can't stay here with me. Like, and I think she died and she was in Sharpsburg for a while. And then I think she died in the South.
No, she definitely did, and her grave is lost to time. It's somewhere on a private property, and
It has a marker on it now.
I think, but I'm not sure they know that's where she's actually buried though. She has a marker in Granbury next to Hiram, but that she's
Oh, does
not
she?
buried there. She's
No,
got
I
an
know
actual,
she's not.
but
Yeah.
I think that then, like, if I remember correctly from when we did the episode a while ago now, they wanted to survey and try to find the grave area, but the owner
Yeah.
wouldn't let them on the property or something.
Which is
It was
like,
something like
what?
that.
It's like,
Well, I mean, who,
why do people have to be that way?
well, I mean, what if you were digging up your yard, digging for a body in your yard? But I mean, I would think that I'd be like, fine with it, sure, as long as I could help out.
Yep. Jim Miller said, if I get a little bit older and a little bit wider, I could portray Winfield Scott.
Well, give it time, like all of us.
Jim City's also he's on leave right now and he's moving back to Iowa,
Oh, is
possibly.
he?
Yeah,
Wow,
we'll
that's
have to
pretty
talk
cool.
to him about that.
I,
Um, James said Emerging Civil War recently did a book about or a presentation or a book about Clara. Stephen Oates' book on her was very good. Richard said, "Who was crazier, Sickles before the war or Barton after?"
Claire Barton.
Yeah,
I don't think Sickles was crazy at all. I think he just, I think he just knew how to play the system. I don't think.
Sickles was Sickles.
I mean, I don't know. I don't. Um, the, you could say a lot of things about Sickles, but that he was probably one of the higher IQ guys in the entire Civil War. Just read his writings sometime. The guy could.
Yep.
The dude was,
Highly emotional individual.
and he certainly got what he wanted and didn't like it when he didn't
Yep.
get what he wanted. Um, I think Barton. I think for her, I think she had a really tough young early life. I mean, she was an independent woman who men didn't like because she was an independent woman. She was a teacher, and then
Yeah.
everything happened with the war. And I think you see the stuff you did. Um, it just has to wear on you. It just does.
Yeah.
And people talk about seeing death and war and stuff like that, and it's funny because if you people think like when Alexander Gardner's pictures came out about the dead of Antietam, that people are mortified. They kind of weren't. They were kind of like, oh, this is really cool. They're like almost bloodlusty to
Well, there
see
was
it.
like the obsession with death in the Victorian era. Like you took pictures with your dead relatives.
Right, but this was like you went up there and you felt, I'm sure some people did, felt sad, or this is so bad, this is so awful. It was kind of like watching Springer. I mean,
Yep.
it brought out a side of people to death that they hadn't seen before. They it just, I mean, again, if you were, a third of children under 9 died, and so you think about it, if you made 10 years old, you were probably fine. Otherwise, you were at a 33%, rate mortality rate as a child. I
Yeah.
mean, that sucks. So you're
Yeah.
kind of used to it a certain way. But there was a morbid curiosity that came out when Gardner's pictures came out.
Yeah.
Um, that doesn't really get talked a lot.
Yeah. Our friend Maria's on here. She said, "Good evening, friends."
Maria's a troublemaker. She's a troublemaker.
She's um, and then Frank said that Boston Corbett was crazier than both combined, and then Jim said Boston Corbett was definitely cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. That's very true. Um, and James said Claire's involvement with the missing soldiers bureau must have been so haunting. I would agree. We were talking about that with Gentili on the weekend, and he was talking about how like, she would help, families try to find these missing soldiers. And then there was this one family that was like, we can't find our son. Is he dead? We think he's dead. And then John told the story about how like he was like, Clara just said to them, "Do you think he wants to be found? Like maybe he just doesn't want to be found."
Well, but that happened a lot because and people don't mean Clara Barton, like you just kind of talk about. She spearheaded this, finding the people movement, and yeah, she got a lot of letters saying, "Listen, not for nothing, but I don't want to be found. Stop it." And they'd be like, "Well," and there was a quote she said in one of the books I read recently about, "It's not my problem that you hate your family more than they love you, so I'm trying to help them," or something, was something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but that's a weird time though when you look at all that stuff too. I mean, you're looking at like Dr. Oliver Wendell Holmes, not the one who fought. Um,
Yeah.
but when he was shot through the neck in the West Woods and he lived, his father came to find him. And once the father, now he's a famous Boston doctor, realized his son was going to be okay, you know what he did? He went relic hunting on the battlefield and filled up a bag, grabbed a bunch of shit to bring home.
What the hell?
Belt buckles, swords. Yeah, he was like everybody else looking for stuff. He's like, all right, I guess I'm gonna get my metal detector. I'll go battle hunting. And it's speaking of Wendell Holmes, he's funny because he got shot. I forget if it was the first. I think it was First Manassas, and he did one of those. Tell my mother I died fighting the battle. Fighting for
Yep.
my country, and he survives. He
Hmm.
gets shot in the West Woods, and he tells. You know what he tells the guy to write to his mother because he thinks he's going to die? Tell my mother it's her fault I'm here. He was pissed. He flipped a complete 180. And he ends up living and he ends up becoming a Supreme Court justice and living a long and famous life. But if you read some of his papers from the 20th Mass in Antietam,
Yeah.
they were angry from being led to where they were led, along with the 15th Mass, these other people. But he's an interesting guy. He just was kind of like, you know what? I'm bleeding to death. I'm doing this for. I
Yeah.
apparently made some promise to her.
Can you
Like
imagine the
this.
Christmas when he got home?
Oh, I've got a mother letter right to my mother. If that were me, you kidding me? Whew.
Your mom would, you'd still be hearing about it.
She'd be like, "Who's this? Who are you?"
She's like, that didn't happen that way, Darren.
Well, she's the one, by the way, who she changed her phone number and didn't tell me. So I called her on Mother's Day, and some old lady answered the phone. Wasn't her, and I wished her a happy Mother's Day. I think it was my mother, and it wasn't her. So I had a big long conversation with some lady. She was thrilled I called her on Mother's Day because her kid didn't. So that's my mother. But I made someone's day happy that day, so it matters.
Didn't happen that way,
You
Darren.
know,
My gosh.
yeah.
Richard said, that the soldiers were affected like by Crimea and Afghanistan and England as well. I remember when we did the episode about McClellan, and he had been over and witnessed some of the Crimea War, and they say that that had an effect on him, and that's why he was like great organizer, but he didn't want to see his men suffer that way because he saw them as like his boys kind of thing, right? And I think that factored into some of the command decisions McClellan made and how he would, and I mean, I like McClellan. He's not my favorite general, but I don't think he deserves a lot of the shit that he gets from people.
Oh,
But I
there's
think
no
I
question.
think that Crimea War definitely had an effect on him.
Well, Crimea had a big effect on guys like George McClellan. You know, he
Yeah,
went
that's
over
what I was
there.
just talking
Yeah.
about.
No, but I mean the soldiers too. But it's been
Yeah.
McClellan. But it filled his head full of all kinds of stuff
Yeah,
too. You
that's what I
know.
was talking about, that it filled his head full of like he had these images of these soldiers dying and he's like, I don't want to see my men go through that kind of thing. Like, and I don't want to call it PTSD, but it was definitely something with him that he was affected by it, whatever he saw over there. Um, he didn't want to see it again.
No. And that's. I mean, nobody wants to see their troops die. I mean, that was the problem
No.
with him is he certainly didn't want to see that. No one does, but he especially. There's a story after Antietam, he couldn't even walk. He had to ride in the ambulance to go to visit everybody. Who knows how true that stuff is? But that's the stuff they say. I mean, the men loved him for a reason. You know.
Hmm. No, they definitely did. Um, just reading some of yeah, and so some of this stuff too, we were talking about, the pictures from Antietam that James said, like, that fed into the spiritualist movement too that is happening during the Civil War in the
Mm-hmm.
late 19th century with people like having seances. There was that guy that remember that guy we watched the show about him that he put the ghost would appear in pictures, and Mary Lincoln was the one guy or girl that came, or she came to sit for him, and like suddenly Abraham Lincoln appears in the picture. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. You know what's so funny that I forget that guy's name. Who it was a big fraud, but that was they still don't know how he really did that.
No.
I mean, the Lincoln one seemed like I was, but there was a couple other ones. We watched that documentary one night here one day
Yeah.
on that guy.
Yeah.
Um, and there are some pictures like, yeah, we kind of don't really know how he did this. Even
Yeah, they
today's
don't.
technology, we don't know how he did
Yeah.
that. So maybe who
Yeah.
knows? Maybe he did.
Yeah. It was just, it
The
was
spirit, the
weird.
spirit, the spirit of Halloween, Mary.
Maybe
Yeah,
he was like Miss Cleo.
you know, um, Miss Cleo. She comes up all the time now. She's calling out to us, Mary.
Miss
Cleo.
Cleo. Um, Frank said, I had this thought earlier today. I don't imagine Civil War armies ever cleaned up after a battle or breaking camp. Any instances of anyone cleaning up the fields after the war?
Like
Well, that's what,
cleaning the
like
fields.
they would just get up and left. Like that's why you find so many relics.
I mean, most times they sat around camp. I mean, most of their existence was they weren't fighting every single day. Most of
No.
their time was sitting around, and they had cleanup duties, and they had to keep it clean for different reasons. I mean, they weren't very sanitary. I mean, if you're
Mm-mm.
Dr. Letterman stuff, um, some of these guys they'd make the bathroom around the circle to mark their territory. You just whip it out and go, and that's how
Ew.
how they did it. I mean, there was stuff, there was food, there was animal entrails. They just threw it on the ground. They must have smelled the flies and everything. And
Ugh.
I mean, it's just a different world. Like, that's why none of these reenactments are really 100% true.
Well,
Um,
no.
but Letterman, I mean, if you read him, it's a guy named William Hammond, who was kind of the Surgeon General, if there was such a thing back in the time too. and they had a real hard time trying to clean up the armies and keep them healthy. And they both ended up basically getting fired by Edwin Stanton later because of Stanton.
Yeah.
I know Hammond was fired. I think Letterman left on his own because of what happened with him, but
Mhm.
they both left. After everything Letterman did, he he was somebody who was not happy when he left. There's a famous picture taken somewhere. I think it was in Tatum, where they're looking at the camera, and there's like 6 or 7 guys, and he's purposely looking away. He just looks miserable. It's like there's one of only couple of pictures that exist of him that I've ever seen. This is what everyone sees, that he's a little
Yeah.
older, but there's one he's a little bit younger. And I don't think I think a lot of these guys, they're more famous and beloved now, obviously, than they were back then.
Mhm.
Guys like Gouverneur K. Warren, we've talked about.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys left the army and they just
Oh, Gouverneur K. Warren was a
wanted
very bitter
wanted
man, and
wanted no
I
part of it, because for the most part, it was the if you survived it at the beginning to the end, it was 4 of the most miserable years of your entire life, and you would
yeah,
wish it on your worst enemy. Which I always find fascinating. People reenact that if you really think about it.
yeah,
Like we've said before, think of the worst day of your life you've ever had. And coming back 100 years to find out some random person is reliving your day for fun,
yeah.
right? And
Like,
that's what's
dude, this
kind of
is
that.
fun.
Yeah, but that's why it's a different world.
Yeah.
We can't sit. They didn't sit there and drink their Yingling and um, tell stories and watch Maria Black get drunk and run around the fire like
Oh,
people do now.
jeez.
But that's just the way it is.
Oh, what was I gonna say? Completely lost my train of thought
That,
again.
that train usually goes slow.
It does, yeah, especially when I'm tired. Can't wait till next week with the time change.
Well, that's next week, isn't it?
Yeah. Gosh, I had a really good thought. Well, never mind. It'll come back to me like 3 in the
Just like
morning.
that. Just like that. You know.
I was gonna say, oh, I know what it was. Gary Edelman posted a picture I'd never seen before of, I think it was Andrew Humphreys without his hat on.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that man always has this, the look on his face is just one of he is done with everybody. Like he's just like, I'm not dealing with anybody's shit anymore. I'm done.
Well, he was an angry fella.
Yeah.
Like swore a lot. You know.
Yeah. Kind of like me.
He's in that famous picture with Lincoln and McClellan in
Hmm.
Antietam.
Yeah.
He's in the far right.
There's another one where it's Warren and Meade's in the picture, and Warren is like sitting off to the side and he's giving everybody like this side eye. And I zoomed in on it one time and it's like, oh, he's done with everybody. This must have been when things were going bad. Like and he's leaning back in his chair. He's like this. And he's just like, I'm done with everyone right now. Like
Well,
they
that
said,
that
I don't remember getting drunk, but I remember my spotlight on my hat.
pretty much proves my case right there. But it's okay.
Yeah.
Um, no, but I find it fascinating to look back on some of these people, and it's why we study these people as people too. Is you get to look and see how some of these people ticked and get to come with their really really stories, because everyone
Yeah.
it's fun to imagine these valiant guys, um, and there's just so many good. William Christian, General Christian, we talk about him.
Hmm.
He's part of the attack on the cornfield in Antietam.
Yeah.
He gets 30 seconds into it, right, leading his men, has a nervous breakdown. He turns around and rides all the way home. He didn't live far away. And when they found him, he was sitting on his front porch, sitting on his banister and on his deck, pretending he was riding a horse, giving orders to phantom men who didn't exist. He like literally lost his mind.
Whoa.
It's a kind of a funny story when you think about it. It's kind of sad too
Yeah.
about the stuff these guys people had to deal with.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
nobody came out of that war unscathed mentally. I don't care what anybody says. And
no.
you can't say, well, you can't say he had PTSD. Or it's like, something. I don't need to know it's windy to see wind to know it's windy either. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes.
What's that line from Ben Stiller said it in Mystery Men? He said, I don't need a compass to tell me which way the wind shines.
Oh, okay. But no, I mean, I mean, there is so much that comes out of that if you just think about it. And if you read the soldier diaries, the ones that they wrote as they were going,
Mm.
I mentioned John Ransom, right?
Yeah.
A little while ago. You read his Elijah Hunt Rhodes, all these guys, obviously Rufus Dawes. You definitely you definitely see a different guy, and you get towards the end, and I just can't imagine any of these people, and in some of them they love killing. I mean, um,
Mhm.
speaking of Antietam again, there's stories of Confederates who were in town on when they were leaving, showing off all to the females in town, rings they made out of Union soldiers' bones, what they were wearing, and
Yep.
just as prizes and trophies. And I mean, it's a brutal time. It just really, really is. But it's just hard to imagine coming out of that completely as you went into a totally normal. It just isn't. I don't think it's possible.
Oh, yeah. And like, I think, like, I know I've been hit, and I've mentioned this before on here. I've been hit before for saying Rosecrans had like likely had PTSD. And the more you read about these guys, like, the more you see that they are having to, like, I mean, someone like Howard who lives to be 78, 79 years old, he is the last commander of a Union army to die. So think of men like Sherman, Grant, McPherson, obviously killed during the war, Meade, who dies after the Civil War, but they've all died, and Howard is the last one. And I want to find out how many years it was that he was left as the last one. And I can't help but think like he must have thought of that at some point, that he must have thought, wow, here I'm the last one. And at that point, you're like, who do you talk to when you're the last one?
I mean, that's yeah, because
And
that's the
it's kind
hardest
of
part.
sad. It's kind of sad to think that at some point you're the last one. And I mean, I know he kept in touch with Sherman after the war because he and Slocum and Sherman used to hang out. Um, I don't think Slocum lived, I'm just gonna look that up. Because Slocum commanded an army, right?
Yeah,
He,
I think you figured Howard was the last. He was the last
no,
one.
he
Yeah,
was in his obituary, he was. Slocum died in 1894, so Howard was the
was it
last one.
1909?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, yeah, and because I was trying to go through my head all the army commanders that, in the Union Army, and yeah, he was the last one. But at some point, you got to be like, oh, I'm the last one. Um, but like you look at the way some of these guys write, like you can tell by the way that Howard writes some of the stuff in his memoirs that the war has left an impact on him because he's like, this should not be something we glorify for young people. He's also writing his memories or his memoirs, I think around the time he lost his son in a war. And he's like, we can't glorify this.
Hmm.
Um, this is not something to glorify. It's not, and he's kind of in that writing, he's kind of taken a shot at Chamberlain as well, I think, because Chamberlain really glorified it. And Howard's like, we can't glorify this.
Well, I mean, you remember too that the other thing that really exploded during the Civil War is the newspapers. I
Yeah.
mean, New York City had 11 newspapers alone at the height of the Civil War. And so they were trying to outshock each other. And there's that, guys like George Smalley from the New York
Mhm.
Tribune, one of the more famous ones, having to basically find ways to get his stories transmitted because the army was basically he was trying to send telegraphs off to New York for the War Department was intercepting them
Yeah.
and not letting them get out there because they didn't want the stories being told. And but yeah, there's so much industry and so much of American culture really pulled forward fast during the war. There's no question it
Hmm.
was. And this is
Yeah.
North and South too.
Yeah.
Um, but it was all sensationalism if you really think about it.
Hmm. Yeah. And I mean, the other two, like, the other area too to look at to how these guys felt about the war going on is not just like the memoirs are great, the diaries, but the letters they're writing home and to see how they're like, I'm done with this. Like I know Howard says to his wife at one point, he's basically saying, I am so tired of what Jeff Davis is doing. And this like so he's saying it's another Christmas away from my family because Jeff Davis decided it was a good idea to have a rebellion.
No, I mean
Like
it
that's
wasn't
basically
him.
that. I
I
know it
know.
wasn't, but that's who Howard, he was like, this is so like, he's like, because these guys decided to have a rebellion and I
Well,
can't
I
be
think yeah,
like,
I think he assumes Jeff Davis is representative of the whole bigger picture. I
yeah, that's it.
suppose.
Yeah, that's what and he's frustrated. You can tell he's frustrated when he's writing this. He's looking for someone to blame. And that's in the real time writing that he's doing that at Christmas time because his wife's like, can you come home for Christmas this year? And he's like, I can't. I'm in the Carolinas.
Yeah, he's just kicking back on the beach doing nothing probably.
Oh yeah.
chasing the women around.
Oh yeah, with his coconut drink,
Oh yeah, probably
him and Sherman.
with this one arm.
Oh God.
You know, no, but yeah, but that's the truth though, and that's a fascinating study too when you really get into this how American history and culture changed. It
Mhm.
just really did. Like we said a while ago, the role of women changed completely. It led to the
Yeah.
19th Amendment eventually, and industry. And South obviously had to catch up because of the war, but railroad system, everything.
Mhm.
Internet was created.
The whole the whole South had to redo its infrastructure because of
Yeah.
Uncle Billy.
1865, Netscape was created.
God. I still know people that use I know people who use Netscape.
I thought that company went out of business a long time ago.
I don't know. I thought like maybe it was a few years ago, someone was like, I still use Netscape. And I'm like, why?
I don't.
Netscape
I know
Navigator.
somebody with a Hotmail account still.
Not me.
I don't know. I didn't say it was you. It's it was you. I know someone who does.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
but it's a good thing to study though, and when you study all the different aspects of it too, because
Yeah.
the battles are fun. You could read about the battles and all that stuff, but when you sit back and look at how it really did change everything, it really did. I mean, people tend to focus on the slavery aspects of it all, and I know that was a big part of it and all that, but it just what it did for the United States Navy going
Yeah.
forward, the railroads we've talked about before, all that stuff. It just really
Yeah.
and it brought the country as one country. It really
Hmm.
wiped out a lot of the state stuff, made a strong federal government. Um, so I tell people all the time, they say, this country is what it is today because of the Civil War. And they said, sir, this is a McDonald's. What's your order? All that
Yeah.
stuff. But you tell people that, it's important to realize.
Yep. Richard says highly recommend West from Appomattox, and that greater reconstruction was as much technological and social as legal.
You could pick so many aspects of life to look at, and also how it helped push Europe too to catch up to the United States too.
Mhm.
England was mortified how quick the U.S. Navy got caught up to them because they owned
Yeah.
the seas for forever.
Canada
Now,
got to become a country.
yeah, now you got ironclads and you got all this stuff
Mhm.
going on, and yeah, so it's pretty. I know it's a miserable 4 years in American history, but it's sometimes you gotta I guess try to look for the positives, I suppose, right?
Well, war causes things to change, I think is what it is. And that definitely, by 1867, Canada is Dominion. Um, mm. Oh, the History Underground's on here. Hey, rolling late to the party. Hey, no worries.
Well, yeah, no, but it's good to look at the big picture with this stuff too, though. And I know people, like we said before, they get caught up in the minutia. They've got their favorite general, and they have their favorite battle, and they have their favorite
Yeah.
strategy, and this guy sucks, and this guy's great, and the whole deal. But sometimes you got to take one of those big elevator speeches, take a big step
Yeah.
back, and look at the big picture and how things really change. Because
Mhm.
it's just because it's obviously it's extremely important. That's why we study all this stuff, and why you try to have fun with it and try to make heads or tails of it, and why people are still writing book after book after book about
Yeah.
it, not just that repeated stuff over and over and over again. Like
Mhm.
another Lincoln book comes out, for example, or another
Yeah.
Grant book comes
Yeah.
out. But
Well,
that's
I was so happy to find this little book about Oliver Otis Howard called The Good Man. And I was reading some of it last night. And, the author, is a graduate of Bowdoin College. And I was reading a bit at the end. And it's more about Howard's time with the Freedmen's Bureau, because that time with the Freedmen's Bureau is very controversial because of Fernando Wood. But the guy makes the argument that Fernando Wood was going after Howard for like more just personal reasons and basically to be a dick to him is what was happening. And Howard just didn't understand that part of it. He's like, I don't know why, I've told him what I've done. Like I've told him what happened in the bureau. I don't know why he's still going after me. And it's like, well, he's going after you because it's Fernando Wood. Um, but the end of the book talks about how Howard was an abolitionist at a time when it was not, he's an abolitionist when he's at West Point. That's likely why he has a falling out with it's either Jeb Stuart or it was Fitzhugh Lee who did not like Howard. I don't think the two of them were friends.
no, Fitzhugh Lee is a sneaky bastard in the big picture. He he
Was
did
it
he is though, because he's one of those
his?
guys who's twisting his mustache, and he was one of those guys just kind of like Fitzgerald Port. Maybe it's a Fitz thing. Maybe that's what
Was
it is.
it, but was Fitzhugh the one that hit Howard?
That was at West Point.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Because
know,
Howard was like, I don't like Howard said something about in defense of African
he
Americans
he
and
he defends. He tried to defend the, black citizens
yeah.
and in a group of Confederates, and reportedly Fitzhugh was one of them. And he said, "Where I'm from, we shoot them. We don't defend them, or some damn thing." And Howard got
Yeah.
mad. All I could picture is Ned Flanders and the Simpsons getting all mad.
Yeah.
Don't you dare, you know.
Yeah. The
And then
diddly damn.
he ended up getting his lunch taken away hard by him. And Superintendent Robert E. Lee is the one who basically, calmed
Went to
everything
check
down.
on him in the hospital, and then
Yeah,
and then Howard like says, "Oh, I got in an accident when I was at the gymnasium."
probably working on his abs,
Jeez.
getting all jacked up.
But yeah,
Um,
he was. I think it was Noelle Berry who mentioned at the beginning of this that Howard was. She was surprised to learn that Howard was friends with Jeb Stuart. Yeah, he was friends with a lot of Confederates. Jeb Stuart, William Hardy, um, Stephen Dealey, and he were good friends as well. And they actually had a falling out after the war because Howard was like, I can't do this thing for you. And I think it was something to do with defending him on something.
yeah.
And then they finally reconciled a few years before S.D. Lee passed away. They were like, S.D. Lee wrote him and said, you know what, this is not, we don't need to have this falling out. There's been enough bad stuff happen. Let's reconcile. And they became
Well,
friends again.
well, they certainly. I mean, you had stories of these guys trying to reconcile. And there's a lot of famous stories. We talked about John Mosby with George Pickett going to see Robert E. Lee that time.
Yeah.
Obviously, James Longstreet and Dan Sickles. There's those stories. One of my favorite stories is when President U.S. Grant was sitting in the White House and Robert E. Lee came to call on him, talking about trying to get a grant, no pun intended, to fix and build some railroads. And they're sitting around. Just imagine the first time they've seen each other since Appomattox. And Grant's trying to lighten the mood a little bit because Lee's all dour, like he always is. And he says, he goes, we spend more time destroying railroads than fixing them in our past. And Lee just kind of just stared at him and just went right to business. So,
Can you imagine if Sherman had been there for that?
oh gosh, imagine that. Oh, we surely did. You know,
In his Katharine Hepburn
oh yeah.
voice.
But I mean, some of these guys got along really, really well. Some of them didn't. The Sickles story is with Longstreet's great because Sickles, he stands up in the South and he stands on the table and he starts singing the Star Spangled Banner basically on a dare.
There was alcohol involved
Well,
that night.
and him and Longstreet, drunk as hell, walking up and down the streets, walking each other back to their hotels and going back and forth and back and forth. And those are the stories that are fun to read because you hear a lot of the Longstreet stories. A lot of the Lost Cause people, they don't like him for a couple of different reasons. Because for one, he was the one that they blamed all of Lee's failings on. Guys like Walter Taylor, George Marshall, a lot of these guys came out and blamed Longstreet, Gettysburg and stuff like that. Longstreet was really good at Fredericksburg and really good at Antietam, setting up his strategy. And it was, when Lee veered off of it at Gettysburg is when things kind of went south for him. And then of course after the war, when he went Republican and he was down in New Orleans and he basically had hired a lot of the blacks to be part of his basically a militia.
Mm-hmm.
You can see how politically that was going to be a real problem for these people, especially when he got in bed with U.S. Grant. But I mean, that's the thing. And so obviously, when you look at the history part of it, a lot of the Lee Longstreet, and there's still a Lee Longstreet thing. It's funny how it goes back and forth. There are some times when it kind of goes back towards the middle, and a lot of it goes back to blaming Jeb Stuart for Gettysburg, for example, blaming Longstreet for Gettysburg, blaming all these things, the insubordination that Longstreet gave him before Pickett's charge. 15,000 men could ever take this hill.
Well, he's not wrong.
Right, but so when these stories come out later, though, and I mean, Longstreet didn't himself no favors by writing them memoirs. We basically took a steaming beer piss on everybody.
Yeah.
Right? Kind of like McClellan did. So he
Mhm.
tried to clear the record, but instead of defending himself, he went off at everybody. So history goes forward. The Lee people tend to gravitate towards those things versus the Longstreet people try to look at the record, and it just goes back and forth. And there's
Yeah.
been Liz Barron's Longstreet book's really, really good
Yeah.
because it does set the post-war record. I mean, if you're looking
Hmm.
for a book on the Civil War about Longstreet, you're not going to get a lot of Civil War. It's mostly
No.
post-war into politics, but it explains so much of Longstreet psychology. It really, really does. And seeing how things change, how these people change.
But I think that's good to have that post-war because the post-war is sometimes very fascinating and it factors into how they are being viewed during the Civil War as well. Like for Longstreet, that's definitely the case because his post-war is when, because of his alignment with the Republicans, with African Americans, made him, the term was scallywag. So it's like, all right, well, what can we blame him for during the war? We're going to blame him for this, this, and this. And I think that happened, um, to a few different people, that something happened with them post-war, and they're like, well, let's go back in the record and blame them for this during the war, kind of
Well,
thing.
everyone, you want to come out of that. I mean, that the whole lost cause narrative comes from that.
Hmm.
It really does. But again, it all goes back to the personal opinions of different people.
Yeah.
And Robert E. Lee, I mean, he was the when you think of the Confederates, the average person, you stumble into the beer store, ask them, hey, name me one Confederate. They're always going to say Robert E. Lee every single time.
Yeah.
And so he's going to be defended by people, especially his contemporaries at the time. And as people continue, as time goes on, a lot of those personal historical memories turn into facts, whether they're
Hmm.
true or not. Um, the fact of the matter is, Lee post-war was very much into sort of recuperation again.
Hmm.
Not having old scores be settled. He didn't want the flag to be presented. Don't wear the uniform.
Yeah.
There was that quote: "Virginia needs her best sons today to go
Yeah.
forward." So he did what he could. He just didn't. Problem was he didn't live long enough.
No, and that's the one problem is some of these guys didn't live long enough to have a voice in history, um, for us to know,
And there are people like John Mosby or James Longstreet, for example, who are very much let's move on,
Yep.
let's accept the loss and take the L and move on. But then there were others. I mean, you had guys like John Brown Gordon who
Mhm.
sort of did it, but did it in a way where he was fighting for Georgia to get Democratic rule again for the Democrats. That
Let's
was
not forget
always
where he was going for his
right. But what
meetings.
I'm saying was that he played the game, but did it for
Yep.
his own self interest. Versus guys like Jubal Early, for example, who took their ball and went home, wanted nothing to do
Yep.
with it.
Oh, he didn't just go home. He went to
No,
Canada.
there's really three different schools of thought how the
Mhm.
post-war went, and it's interesting how history treats all of them. I mean, Early is looked upon as this rebel, never surrendered. Mosby never surrendered. Actually, his 43rd Virginia
No.
Cavalry, but at the end of the day, he realized the importance of reconciliation, and so he became part of Grant's inner circle.
Yeah.
Hated in Virginia for that.
Yeah.
Absolutely hated. Um, but as history looks back on it now, after Jackson, after Lee, after Jeb, you're probably Mosby's probably top five, beloved Confederates in Virginia,
Hmm.
even after all this. So time does heal all, but it's not a lot of people pulling the scab away like they do with Longstreet, right?
Yeah.
Because every Lee book you read Douglas Southall Freeman's books or some of these other books on Lee, Longstreet's sort of made out to be some sort of enemy from within in a lot of these books.
Yeah. And I think that is, you see that here in Gettysburg. Like there's very much a Longstreet faction. There's very much a Lee faction.
Yeah.
And I mean, the thing with Gettysburg is that you also have the pop culture of the movie. Um,
Well, that's a whole different thing right
that
there.
is like, that is a whole other thing as well, where you have to be able to like be prepared for that movie crowd that is going to come in and be like, oh, is this where Hancock made his great stand? It's like, actually, it's not.
But that's the whole thing. I mean, yes, the movie is the best and worst thing that ever happened at the Battle of Gettysburg. It really, really is.
Yeah,
I love the movie. Don't get me wrong,
same.
but in even Glory is very historically inaccurate. It
Yeah,
really, really is. I mean, but then again, it's a movie. You watch it to be entertained. You're not gonna. I don't.
yeah. Don't take it
Somebody.
for gospel.
No, somebody I know who's in NASA, who flies in spaceships, loves Star Wars,
Yeah.
doesn't get offended that it's not real. That's part of the truth.
Mhm.
Um, but you're right though. Some of the stuff I've heard walking this battlefield, some of the stuff I've heard guides say is
Mhm.
just head shaking, and a lot of it comes from the movie. It certainly was. Um, I mean, a lot of people they think that the statue is Chamberlain instead of Gurna K. Warren. Some
Yeah.
of that I understand because, of course, he's fighting for Round Top. He's the hero of Little Round Top, but
Yeah.
history says Gurna K. Warren's history around is a hero of Round Top.
Yeah.
But um, but again, you can't include everybody, and I get it. But there, you definitely hear conversations that people have that they clearly see the movie and they think the movie. One of the
Yeah.
biggest parts of the movie that's completely garbage is the Hancock Armistead relationship.
Yeah.
Now they did. I shouldn't say it's complete. Well, it's very, very, very embellished.
It's not a bromance.
I mean, it's so embellished it should be driving a Ford F-150. Put it that way.
Jesus.
That's.
We won't be hearing about that. Remember the review we got where we like signed an F-150 driver.
Oh yeah, but that's true though. But I mean, again, it tells a great story. But when you realize the movie Gettysburg is just basically a bromance movie set in a war environment, that's
Mm.
all it is. So there are people who get really, really into it. But again, I mean, the movie Gettysburg romanticizes certain people who does not deserve to be romanticized, right?
Mhm.
It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Garnett
Yeah.
does not deserve to be
No,
romanticized. He
no,
does
no.
not.
After what you told me about his family, I was
No, I
like,
mean he's a
yeah,
huge,
yikes.
huge slave owning family in Virginia, 135 slaves, all that stuff. But again, he's part of the story. It's part of the Stonewall
He's part
story,
of the
and so
story of
I,
the
I,
battle.
I, I
Yeah.
get it. But again, if you just into the movie and you see this, some of these people like these lovable victims caught in a bad
Yeah.
situation, and it's just not the case. But that's again, I don't want to get off my lawn this whole thing because that's kind of what I'm doing.
No, we love the movie, but there's just it's like you have to remember it's a movie. History Underground said, forget Hancock. People want to see where Buster Kilrain got hit.
Buster Corain, yep, shot in the armpits. You know,
I still like the horse theory.
yeah, that's somebody who's a listener here who remain nameless is his theory, which just sounds funny, but think about it, it's true, was that Buster Corain was actually Chamberlain's horse
In the inner monologue with his
in the
horse.
inner monologue. And you start to think about it, that really Buster only really talks to Chamberlain and vice versa. How many times he makes references to why don't you ride the damn horse?
Yeah,
He shot in the armpits
which are the
where horses where
flanks.
the horse would have been shot. So when you think about it, okay, well maybe Michael Shara was trying to do that. Who knows? But it's fun to think about that stuff.
Yeah, well, and the other thing too, someone said to me, well, it couldn't be because his brother comes back and says Buster didn't make it. And it's like, well, a lot of these generals had like their horses were like
Yeah,
I want to say
absolutely.
their pets. They would have wanted to know. Like they're like for instance, Lee always rode Traveler. That was his primary horse. Dolly, I think, was his secondary horse, but they were attached to these animals. Um, they're not just service animals. They're like almost like an extension of them. You look at the relationship that General Meade has with his horse, Old Baldy, that when
Hmm.
Baldy got hit at Gettysburg, Meade was writing his wife in the days following the battle that I don't know if the horse is going to make it this time. I don't know. Like, it was very, very concerned. And Baldy did make it, but he wasn't the same after, and Lee or Meade retired him. But after the war, Meade and Baldy would go riding together. And I think that was just because they'd
Hmm.
had that shared experience that Meade could go off and just be in solace with like ride with the horse and, you know, think about what he had to think about. And Baldy was the horse at Meade's funeral.
It's as silly as it sounds, though, is that when you watch the movie Gettysburg next, keep that horse narrative in your head as you
Yeah.
watch it, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that it's interesting because it's not too far from reality when you watch it with that mindset. I don't know.
Yeah. At
It's just
first,
like one
when
of
our
those
friend
stories.
mentioned the theory, we were like, what? And then it was like, whoa. Like,
Yeah, no, it's who knows, who knows, but it's one of those things that's fun to think about. Who the hell knows? I mean, Sherrod did a whole bunch of pot free roll, wrote that book.
he
Yeah.
did all these, like, let's make Buster into the
What
horse,
if they made
but
him into
not
an actual
say.
talking horse,
Oh, well, that's what History
like
Underground just
Mr.
says.
Ed?
That's what History Underground just says. Buster Kilrain was Mr. Ed at Gettysburg.
Yeah.
Imagine.
If he was at First Manasseh, he could have said Wilmer. Who
Maybe he
knows?
was
But
at
it's
Appomattox
fun. It's
too.
fun stories to think about. But who the hell knows? But it's fun to
Yeah.
it's fun. It's fun to sit there and think about. It's one of those. You've had 6 or 7 beers at the mine, yes, and you have these conversations. You go, come to think of it, no one else talks to Buster except Chamberlain, and vice versa.
Maybe he
Huh?
is a horse.
He's obsessed with riding the horse all the time, and maybe who knows? But it's just
Could you imagine if they replaced him with a horse and the horse is poking its nose in the tent, getting Chamberlain up?
feels like always eating an apple. That'd be funny too. One of those dudes always eating hay.
Yeah.
He's always in the field by himself walking around,
Yeah, where's Buster? He's out walking around.
always hanging around with the other horses. I don't know. But you watch these movies too many times, things pop in your head. It's certainly possible. The hell knows?
Well, we sometimes sit at Sweeney's, it'll be on, and we don't even have to hear the dialogue, and we know it's being said on the screen.
Oh, I've seen that movie so many damn times. I could hear two. I could hear one line of a song into the exact scene it's in. And most
Yeah.
people can do that now too, but it's just one of those things.
Well, like the line that just I'm like cringe is like when Hancock says it is very good ground because I'm like, that was Howard's line.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem with that movie though, is you start to merge the history and attribute some of these things to other people. And I
Yeah.
know I know that scene gets you because it's a lot of the Howard stuff gets attributed to Hancock. And
Well, it's like damage. It's kind of like sometimes you have to do damage control when you're talking to people about it because they're like, oh, well, Hancock was the one that met Meade. It's like, no, he wasn't. It was Howard who met him with Sickles and Slocum. And Howard was having a moment where he's like, did I do okay, Dad? Like he needed some reassurance. And this is, I think, after he'd had his freak out in the cemetery gatehouse, which I don't blame him for having a freak out. Because if I'd been up since 4:30 in the morning and part of that was spent being in charge of the battlefield, I would probably have a little bit of a, freak out myself.
yeah, it's again, it goes back to how mentally people were. I mean, I don't care how tight you were with this stuff. I mean, that's people like Stonewall Jackson commendable because they kept it together. They just did.
Mhm.
And it's hard to imagine being in a situation where, people rip on McClellan for all the time, but it's you don't want to get your army wrecked and you want to see human
Mhm.
loss of human life. And some of these guys, I mean, Jackson, what made Jackson really good was because he was relentless. He was kill, kill, kill. I mean,
Yep.
but that's unfortunate. The true great generals. That's part of the cost of doing business. You have to do it.
Mhm.
You know.
But well, I mean, the thing for me is like, I've heard people kind of rip on Howard because he had that freak out in the cemetery gatehouse. And it's like, well, he wasn't doing it in front of his men. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but the point is he did it in front of fellow officers that likely understood his plight, right?
Of course they did. I mean, it's again the problem with Jackson is because he demanded a certain amount that was almost unreasonable. Where he was, he was giving out court martials and arresting people like kids, giving timeouts to small
Yeah.
children. It sometimes just overdo it. AP Hill was always in this doghouse, always.
Yeah.
And just you're trying to do the best you can. Um, and some of these guys too. I mean, it's just one of those aspects of being a general. You demand 100% loyalty. But I mean, if you're 30 minutes late marching your entire army on the way to Harper's Ferry,
Mhm.
you get arrested for when you need all your men. And so what's the first thing you do? You release them and say, okay, you
Yeah.
you can fight after all. And so it becomes kind of silly. But again, if you're AP Hill, it ends up being somewhat of a. I can't imagine how they must have looked at someone like Jackson after a while. And it was a
Mhm.
big part of why he got to Sharpsburg so quickly. He wanted to prove himself
Yeah.
that he could do it. And he marched that 13, 14 mile walk,
Yeah.
lost a third of his guys along the way, but he got there.
Hmm. Someone said it mentioned Rosewoods.
Yeah, it's that time of year, Mary. Can't go in the Rosewoods this time of year. The clown
Yeah.
will get you.
Braxton Bragg and James said Braxton Bragg disliked everyone, including himself. Um,
I think
every
Brian Braxton, I think, gets a bad rap a little bit.
I think he does. I mean, he's not,
I mean, he's
you
he's
know,
someone people like to pig pile on. Now, certainly, he was not going to be confused anytime soon with Robert E. Lee or
no.
Patrick Clayburn or anybody like that. But he did a good job getting an army ready and organizing them. He really, really did.
Yeah.
I think the problem with him was he put too many cooks in the kitchen. In
He
the,
had
in
a
the,
lot of subordinates. Like Dave Powell does a good job talking about in his Chickamauga book. Like his subordinates were like, you have
Well, look at the people.
Leonidas Polk.
Leonidas Polk. You got William Hardee.
Like,
Now you get throw James Longstreet into the pile. You've got all these alpha dog guys who don't like Bragg, who say, "Damn, if I do well here, I'm going to be commanding this army. I'm going to be dealing. I'm going to be out here doing this." And it's kind of like the mob. Everyone wants to
yeah,
kill off the boss to be the boss.
yeah.
There's a lot of that, and every one of them tried for different things and failed in different ways. I mean,
Hmm.
obviously Longstreet went up to Knoxville and got slapped around by Burnside,
Yeah.
coming off of his all the experience he had in the East, where he had to think that he was going to the West where a bunch of bumpkins that he's going to come take control.
West is such a different beast than the East.
Yeah, and he learned it the hard way.
Yeah. I think a lot of them were like that went out there from the East. They were like, whoa, this is way different. That's the one
You
thing
got you got
Howard
guys
writes to his wife. The
guys
terrain is
guys
completely
like
different.
Beauregard who wouldn't shut his mouth, and he's the Confederate version of McClellan in a lot
Yeah.
of ways, who just didn't like to be told what to do. He hated Jefferson Davis with a friggin' passion.
Hmm. Yeah.
You know, even when Davis died, he refused to go to the funeral.
That man could hold a grudge.
Yeah, he was good at it. He was buried without his shoes. So it was revenge for him.
He was I was gonna say he was one of our ghost stories, not this time, but I think the time before, where he in Louisiana, the place he haunts, he's actually doesn't have boots on. He's in his socks because they didn't bury him with his boots on, and he's walking around the house looking for his boots.
Yeah, well, that's probably true. That's probably true. But no, I think Bragg is not as bad as people think he was. And there are some people who like, but there are some Bragg people. Lee White's a big,
Hmm.
speaking of historians, he's a big
Yep.
Bragg guy.
Hmm.
But I don't think I'd go that far to go as high as he does. But I think he's somewhere in the middle. Like most of these
He's pretty
people,
balanced. Lee is pretty balanced with him. He's more about correcting, like, I think just some of the more outlandish brag stories or whatever, like that, and just kind of, it's like also the whole, like, let's just remember they're human too, and that they made mistakes. But I think Bragg's biggest problem was, I mean, I used to say Bragg's problem was himself, but I mean, Leonidas Polk was no picnic. uh, Orders were guidelines to him. He's like, well, if I feel like doing this, I will. Because wasn't it like at Chickamauga on the second day, wasn't he sitting in the rocking chair and Bragg came up to be like, are you going to attack? And he's like, whatever.
yeah. Well, at that point, at that point, a lot of these guys just they felt that Bragg was on borrowed time. They had that petition going. They're all going to sign this, and I mean, he was someone I think people just lost respect for, and they thought he was a short timer. No one mentioned too. Bragg was sick a lot of the
Yeah,
time.
he had a lot of like, he probably had, I was reading, like, he probably had celiacs and obviously not something that was known back then, but man, like that probably, like I've read one article that ex says that explains a lot of his ailments, like was celiacs. Um, but so much of this stuff was unknown, right? And I mean, he had to be miserable a lot of the time. His wife, I think, was with him on campaign quite a bit
His
too.
life was a lot of the time. You know,
Um,
um,
guy
but
who right, who guy who knows a lot about him is Dave Powell.
well, Powell is. I mean, truthfully, he's like the Western theater guru in a lot of different ways,
Yeah,
especially the Army of Tennessee,
yeah.
Chickamauga, Chattanooga, obviously those battles. Good guy too. Good guy.
Mhm.
We had a lot of fun with him down in emerging Civil War that time. He's a,
Yeah,
he's a good dude. You know.
yeah. And James said too, Bragg was like a lot of them mental health issues as well, possibly too, undiagnosed
Well,
at the
that's what
time.
that's what we're saying. I mean, maybe they said he might have been on the spectrum,
Yeah.
possibly. Again, it's tough to go back and diagnose. We're talking people been dead for 100 plus years.
Yeah.
Um, but like we were saying a little while ago, no one came out of this unscathed mentally. No one did.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if it was medicine, what psychological medicine would have been today, it would have been a different story. I mean, a lot of these people are just like today, these guys who came back from Vietnam or Afghanistan, whatever, they'll
Hmm.
tell you point blank that they're not the same. And
Yeah.
so why would that be any different when it was a lot worse when you're still fighting
Yeah.
at least the beginning Napoleonic styles before the bullets started flying and they all broke up. But you're still marching into meat grinders a lot of times
Hmm.
when it was pushing your men. You look at Grant at Cold Harbor, you
Yeah.
know, you look at the Westwoods at Antietam. Some of these battles, Pickett's Charge,
Hmm.
where we're just going to throw as many men as we can against the wall and see if we can break through. And
Sherman was starting to get that way in the Atlanta campaign,
yeah,
and Thomas was the one that had to be like, you can't keep throwing the men because we're not going to have anybody left when we get to Atlanta.
and that's just the psychological damage of the survivors. How come? Why do I survive and not this guy? I've seen
Yeah.
a guy to the left and a guy to my right get their heads blown off with cannonballs, and I'm
Hmm.
still here. I'm
I
still
think,
standing, just like Elton John says.
yeah, I'm still, no, I
You
won't do
know,
that.
well, please
I,
don't.
I think Ambrose Bierce had, like, I mean, Ambrose Bierce did that. Like, he wrote that whole The Crime of Pickett's Mill, which was completely calling Sherman out for first of all, for his lack of even mentioning it in his memoirs. And Bierce's thing was, what about the guys that died there? Don't they deserve to be remembered?
Yeah.
And that was his thing, and I don't blame him for that. He was angry with Sherman for that. Um, I mean, Howard mentions Pickett's Mill in his memoirs, says it was an absolute nightmare, but
Mhm.
Sherman doesn't.
No, I'm Sherman for the most part. He's gonna talk what he wants to talk about him. If you when you're doing your greatest hits album, you're not gonna put you're not gonna put the flops on there, right?
No.
I mean, unfortunately, you're all talking about legacy and stuff like that. That's why I take, when Sherman talks about guys like Howard, about
Hmm.
how great of a soldier he was, I tend to take those with more salt than a grain of salt, because
Yeah.
for someone to go out of their way in their memoirs to really prop a guy,
Hmm.
it takes a lot if you really think about it. You
Yeah.
know, Howard's not without his flaws,
Absolutely
like
not.
everybody else. I mean, but at the end of the day, um, saying that he never should have been a soldier is just an embarrassingly
That
wrong
really,
take.
that's why I
Because
was like, I have to put my phone down and not respond to this because I'm going to be not very nice to this individual.
I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't. It's like you can, and people tend to blame him too much for Chancellorsville.
Hmm.
They tend to get the facts wrong with Gettysburg, and they tend to completely dismiss the Western Theater with someone like him.
A lot of times people are like, oh, I didn't even realize he went to the Western Theater. I'm like, what do you think he did for the rest of the war?
Yeah. No, I mean that's
He
again,
just
but
left.
that's why you study this stuff though, and there are people like I said, you always keep an open mind with this stuff because you can study these people and sometimes it's like you said, it's tough to unteach a dog old tricks, right?
Yeah.
If you're taught your entire life that this situation is true, and then you're presented with alternative different facts on it,
Yeah.
you're not going to be too quick to dismiss those. You're going to hold on to them. And we see
Hmm.
that a lot with a lot of these people, as
Oh
do
yeah.
most people. It does most people.
Yeah. And I just that's why I tell people I'm like Grant's memoirs are some of my favorites. Sherman's memoirs, I really like them too. I love Howard's, but you have to remember the perspective that it's being written in is their own. And that's why I say like don't base the Battle of Lookout Mountain by what Grant says because you're not going to get you're getting Grant's view of Lookout Mountain, which was pure romance. He didn't want
Well,
Hooker to take the W on that. And
you
that's
use
why.
use that phrase a lot of that, but I mean, I think that I don't think he meant that as insulting as you as I think
No, he
I think what he meant was that is overplayed because I think he felt, you know, even though that Grant was not a big Thomas guy. I think he felt that a lot of that stuff with Hooker on Lookout Mountain took away from Missionary Ridge. I think that's really what he was really getting at with that. Because he's smarter than that. Grant knows the big picture with that.
mhm.
I think he's just trying to say maybe too much is focused on the battle in the clouds because it sounds romantic. when it should be. I think that's really what he was talking about. But again, no one really knows.
He also was not a fan of Hooker.
No, but the best memoirs, the ones that weren't intended to be published, like Charles Wainwright's diary.
Yeah.
Those are the best ones because the ones who get published after they die, because he's as honest as you're going to get reading some of his stuff, because he'll tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. And he's not talking about, okay, I need to spin this way because how's this going to look politically after years later.
Mhm.
Some family member found it and published it. And it's a great read. It's one of the
Yeah.
best. It's one of the best reads.
Yeah. James, speaking of memoirs, mentions that the annotated Sherman memoir should be interested, which you and I have a copy of that on order, which hopefully will be coming in soon. One of the perks of where I work. And then History Underground mentions that at the Grand Review in Washington, D.C. at the end of the war, Sherman only wanted one guy riding by his side, and that was Howard. And that was when Black Jack led Army of the Tennessee.
Yeah.
And then, but Howard was up riding next to Sherman.
Oh, there's no. I mean, despite the fact that Sherman and Howard were complete opposites on social issues,
Oh yeah.
I think no question. But Sherman certainly knew, the goods when it came to the military, and I think if Howard had probably spent his entire career in the West, it might have been a different story with him.
Mhm.
But again, he has that stink from Chancellorsville, and he has that reputation with these Eastern Northern soldiers pushing the religion all the time on them.
Yeah.
And then, of course, dealing with the German people. Germans, weren't liked very much by the average people, and most foreigners weren't liked back then either. And so now you're in charge of these Germans, and now you're failing. And so you're getting the reputation of the Flying Dutch, which is probably fair in some ways, but it's also not fair in others.
Yeah.
But it certainly wasn't one of his fault.
Being an abolitionist too, at a time when abolition, like the AOP, that wasn't really cool to do either.
Mm-hmm.
Like that could get you kind of not ostracized, but just kind of people would push you aside if they knew you were an abolitionist, and Howard definitely was.
And he didn't hide it. I mean, he would be a social progressive today.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he wasn't like, one of these dudes who was considered like Lincoln back in the war.
No.
Today, I mean, people have a hard time with him in certain aspects of his life. There's no question. But he was true to what he said and did.
Mm-hmm.
There's no question about that. But the Howard at Gettysburg thing, though, is just unfortunate. It's one of those things where people assume, for whatever reason, that he was up at Blockers Knoll, and here comes Jubal Early, and here comes Gordon, and they're gonna get run out of the building again.
Yeah.
And here comes Howard running again, and when at that point he was on Cemetery Hill setting up the defenses, which he wisely did. But again, we talk to people in town here at these things, and there goes Howard running again. It's like, well, he wasn't there.
Like what? Yeah, he was. And Craig says that Cemetery Hill was the first Union line anchor.
And it was thank God they did that, because otherwise that would be it. But at the end of the day, it's easy to pigpile on people because historical memory. And you read people like Stephen Sears who have axe to grind with people, Howard, McClellan, people like that. And if that's all you're going to read, well, you're going to come away with the impression, okay, well, he must know what he's talking about. That's the case. So
yeah.
But he had his crappy moments. He had a real crappy moment in Antietam, going into the West Woods when he should have refused his line. And he should have used the Hagerstown Road as kind of an anchor and split off. But again, he followed right into the woods. He caused a traffic jam, and they all got 20 minutes. They lost 2,000 guys. So he's not without his faults, but I think he gets overplayed for Chancellorsville. He gets overplayed historically incorrectly for Gettysburg. But no one talks Ezra Church. No one talks about those type of things. And
talks about the March to Sea, about being the second in command. That, he's not just the right wing commander. He's the second to Sherman in all of it, and that's something that's not very well known about him that this is the guy that if something happens to Sherman is going to be running the whole show. And I think that shows the level of trust that Sherman had in him, and Howard by that point, I think had proven it. And um, but it, it's one of those things. Like I said, I'm looking forward to reading this. It's a short book called The Good Man. Um, and I just discovered it through the wonders of interlibrary loan. Please use your local libraries, people. They are a wealth of resources.
That is true.
I also got a book about the 26 Wisconsin through interlibrary loan as well.
Speaking of blockers, no.
Yep. Yeah. So I'll likely won't get them both read because I'm a slow reader because dyslexic.
Too many big words.
Yeah, dyslexia is fun.
It's fine, but
so, well, we should get ready to head off because
yeah, it's after 9 o'clock. Wow,
I have to get up for work at 6.
Past our bedtime. Holy moly. So yeah, so we'll be doing our episode on St. Albans raid next week.
Yeah.
We'll be dropping that next week, and then we'll do some we got to do a roundtable soon. Maybe we'll try to schedule up in next week sometime. We'll try to do that if we can. Try to get that. That's always a lot of fun to do that, which is, if you haven't been on one of those before, it's just like this, except we do it on Zoom and everyone's on and everyone talks, which is really, really cool. So we can certainly try to do that. And then we get some more episodes coming down the pike. We have to sit down at Civil War Breakfast Club World Headquarters and with our staff of thousands, you and I, and Rosie the Clown over there, we'll determine who the next episode.
I'm surprised you just didn't show up with that on tonight.
No, I usually just do it when I'm driving,
Listening to Pirates of the Caribbean.
Right, exactly. All right, so off we go. So any final words from you?
No, thank you for everyone who jumped on here tonight, and your comments are awesome, and love having you hang out with us like this. We're happy to get back on here. Sorry we haven't been on weekends too much. It's just been a really busy time for us.
Yeah, and we'll probably, as I got thinking about it, probably sometime when it gets warm out again, we'll schedule another one of these booth tours. Yeah, and then maybe if people want to come along, I don't want to jam up Taylor, but if he's not around, if he's only here for March, we can do another one. We wouldn't charge $145 though.
But we're not going to be able to get into the same place.
Right. That's the thing is we meet at the friggin' Silver Spring friggin' kissing ride either. I'll tell you that.
No, we're not. No. I mean, he's doing them. I think he's got 2 or 3 different ones scheduled. The first one's in March and the rest are in April.
No, he's a friend of ours, and he is, in my opinion, he's up there with Michael Kaufman and these people with the top shelf booth people in the assassination people. So hopefully, if you can't do it, we're going to try to do it. Maybe we'll see. If you can't, maybe we can do one. We can do one ourselves as well. All right. Yeah. So when we jump off, so we'll talk to you all soon. Have a weekend's coming around the corner. Actually, it's only Tuesday, isn't it?
That's tomorrow's Wednesday.
See, that's the problem with doing these in the nights, is because tomorrow's only Wednesday.
I know. Well, and halfway through the week,
and we had to put the heat on for the first time this year. And is this proud New Englander? The rules never before November 1st, but I finally had to relent. It just got too cold.
Yeah, I think the cat was getting cold too.
I don't care about the stupid cat.
James asked. James said Hope Mosby is doing well. He is. He wants his dinner right now.
He's fine. It's definitely fine. So off we go. So Mary, go Patriots! Another big win coming up this weekend. So I'll have to head back to God's country this weekend and go watch them play. I'll definitely enjoy that. And we'll talk to you all soon.